Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. God Level Choice. Obito, come and inherit the Hokage. Chapter 71. Obito rushed into Hokage's office and asked excitedly. Grandpa Hokage, why did you sign a peace with Rock Shinobi? He hasn't finished speaking yet. I found that there were other guests in Hokage's office. Don't eat sour radish. Shimura Danzo, why is he here? This is Obito's first time seeing Nabe Cage. I couldn't help but take a second look. Why does this old boy keep squinting? He looks a bit like me. Li Ronghao, where is brother Hao? Third generation looked at Obito and said helplessly. Little Obito, Grandpa did this for his own consideration. Danzo next to third generation snorted slightly and closed his eyes slightly. Hiruzen, you are too weak. Even children are more bloody than you. Since the other party dares to invade our Konoha, then chop off one of their hands so that they can remember it for a long time. You just let them off so lightly. Where is the dignity of Konoha as the #1 hidden village? Danzo's words made Obito's blood boil. Don't say it. Brother Tuanzi really has some unique personal charm. If you don't like to catch people's attention, you like to stab your own people in the back. Maybe he can be regarded as a hero of his generation. Third generation waved its hands. After driving away the Anbu ninja who was about to come in, he said in a faint tone. You don't understand, you don't understand. As the leader of Konoha, Sarutobi Hiruzen thinks more and sees further. Those who succeed in big things plan for 100 years, those who succeed in small things plan for a short time. Nowadays, Konoha has experienced long wars and its talents have withered. This cannot go on. Instead of holding on to a fight of emotions, it is better to swallow your anger. Protect the development of the next generation. There are many juniors in Konoha with amazing talents. It only takes a while to grow into the pillar of Konoha. Such as Obito, Kakashi, Asuma, Guy, Shisui. As long as they grow up, no one in Konoha will dare to commit a crime. But if the war continues, these good seedlings may have to be lost on the battlefield. This is a result he doesn't want to see. Third generation turned around and said. Both of you, please leave. I have made up my mind and there is no need to say anything more. Obito left the Hokage office depressed. What made him even more depressed was Danzo was beside him, staring at him with burning eyes. Haha, Uchiha Obito, right. I heard about your performance this time. It is simply extraordinary. If you'd like, you can join my roots and we'll work together to make Konoha a better place. Obito showed an awkward yet polite smile. Thank you for the invitation. Obito will seriously consider it. Danzo nodded. Without saying anything more, he left with his cane. Obito looked at Danzo's leaving figure and cursed secretly in his heart. You loser, who wants to join your organization? Who? Kakashi has a Sharingan for 10 years. You 10 Sharingans, it took less than half a day. We, the Uchiha clan, owed you something in our previous life or something. There is also Uncle Sakumo's grudge. I will have to settle it with you sooner or later. Obito was distraught, walking on the streets of Konoha. He was still young and didn't understand the decisions made by third generation. All he knew was that his friend was dead. As the initiator of the incident, Iwagakure was not punished. Obito's eyes flashed with a hint of gloom. There is darkness slowly growing in my heart. How about, I do it myself, with my current ability? It is absolutely possible to teach Iwagakure an unforgettable lesson. Obito licked the corners of his dry lips. Are you going to do this? He thought absent-mindedly as he walked. Suddenly found in front of me. There was a tall figure blocking his way. Obito was startled. If not for the critical moment, he materialized his body. He probably just passed through the opponent's body directly. Obito bumped into each other. He looked up and saw a face like this. T hollow down pointing triangle T. Hiss. Why do the red marks under the other person's eyes look so familiar? There is also this full head of white hair, and the word, oil, on the head forehead protector. Obito's mouth slowly opened wide, forming an O shape. Since Lord Jiraiya showed a hearty smile. Well, that's right. Below me is the white-haired hero who is known to everyone from east to west, north and south, and one of the famous Sannin, Jiraiya. The corners of Obito's eyes twitched. Hey, Uncle Jiraiya. You said this string of self-introduction. Are you really not ashamed? Jiraiya looked at Obito's silent expression. I thought he was intimidated by his name. He said with his hands on his hips triumphantly. You are Minato's student. You should have heard him mention me. Obito nodded hastily. Yes, you should be Master Minato's teacher. Minato-sensei said that apart from being a bit unreliable and a bit lecherous, you are still a very nice person. Jiraiya was a little embarrassed. Ahem, this guy Minato, why does he tell you everything? Obito snickered secretly. The words just now were naturally made up by him. Immediately, he asked with some confusion. Jiraiya-sama, do you have any business going back to Konoha? Are you here to see Mr. Minato? Jiraiya stretched out a finger and shook it left and right. No, I'm here for you, Uchiha Obito. Obito's brain suddenly shut down. For me. Obito was a little embarrassed. Could it be that Jiraiya found out about his seduction skills? Then if he wants to use his own materials, do he have to cooperate with him? I'm a little shy when I think about it. Just when Obito was having random thoughts, Jiraiya spoke. Are you willing to sign a summoning contract with Mount Myoboku and follow me to Mount Myoboku to practice? Babies, I mentioned before that Obito appeared in the prophecy of the Great Toad Sage. It's not a brainless opportunity. The character has not collapsed. Everything is the master. No, the order of the immortal. Obito. He never expected it. Jiraiya came to him specifically to take him to Mount Myoboku. So should I agree or not? Although I don't know why Jiraiya made such a decision. But if you go to Mount Myoboku, he may have a chance to gain the Senjutsu inheritance from Mount Myoboku. But when I think about how difficult it is to practice immortality. Obito backed down again. If you spend a few years at Mount Myoboku, then you might as well focus on doing multiple choice questions. Do a few more questions and you'll have everything. For example, if he learns to climb snakes for 2 more years, he will master the Raichi cave magic. Seeing that Obito was hesitating, Jiraiya couldn't help but be a little surprised. You must know that he is talking about the inheritance of Mount Myoboku. How many ninjas dream of inheriting this inheritance even if they squeeze their brains out of their heads? But this child is hesitating. Jiraiya thought about it and thought of a possibility. He thought it might be this kid, not knowing Mount Myoboku's status in the ninja world. So he asked, little Obito, have you heard of Mount Myoboku? Obito nodded and said, of course I've heard of it. It's one of the 3 most famous fairylands along with Raichi Cave and Shikbone Forest. Well, Jiraiya became confused. Since this kid has heard of Mount Myoboku, why would he still hesitate? In this mint, Obito scratched his head, looked at Jiraiya and said, I'm sorry, Jiraiya-sama, this matter is very important. I have to think about it carefully. Jiraiya waved his hand and said, it's okay, don't be in a hurry, just think about it slowly. Thank you Jiraiya-sama, Obito thought and thought. After struggling for a while, I still couldn't decide to pay attention. Never mind. When in doubt, quantum mechanics. No, just ask the system directly. Brother system, can you help me with a multiple choice question for my reference? System. Okay. Ding. Option 1. Give up Raichi Cave Senjutsu and sign a summoning contract with Mount Myoboku. Completion reward. Mount Myoboku Senjutsu. Option 2. Refuse Mount Myoboku's invitation, Raichi Cave Sanjinji. Raichi Cave Senjutsu competition is high. Completion reward. Raichi Cave Senjutsu. Option 3. The geese pluck their feathers and pee out one by one, Lousy wants them all. Use 2 boats and practice 2 kinds of magic at the same time. Completion reward. Cold-blooded animal. Cold-blooded animals. Your body will undergo irreversible distortion. But don't feel bad. Although you have become uglier, you have also become stronger, but it's really ugly. Do you also practice dual immortal arts? Obito's eyes lit up. But this reward, Obito asked tentatively. Brother system, can I choose option 3 and not want this reward? The system vibrated inside Obito's head. No, and this system does not recommend host to practice 2 kinds of magic at the same time. Obito was slightly surprised when he heard this. Why? The system explained. With host's qualifications, the time required to comprehend the magic on your own, let's not mention it for now. It will take at least more than 10 years to achieve perfect compatibility between the two immortal arts. And if perfect compatibility cannot be achieved, the two magic chakras can easily conflict with each other, affecting the host to enter Sage mode. Ah, this, Obito lamented. Does that mean you can only choose one of the two? But no matter which one I give up, I feel a little unwilling to do so. Especially since I have been learning to crawl like a snake for so many years and have died so many times. The system sensed Obito's emotions. He made a ding sound and said meaningfully, Degree, what should be there will be there in the future. Obito chuckled. Omega * brother system, if you say that, then I understand. Option 3, pass. After eliminating option 3 of the two remaining options, Obito quickly made his choice. I choose option 1. Since you can only choose one of the two, it must be Mount Myoboku. It can save you a few years of social death. First, if you choose Mount Myoboku, a summoning beast will also be included. If you choose Raichi Cave, you may not necessarily have one. Secondly, if you get the inheritance from Jiraiya, from now on, you can legitimately use magic. And if you use Raichi Cave Senjutsu, you have to be secretive. After all, you can't tell others. I have been learning to crawl with snakes for 10 years, and I suddenly realized the magic. No one will believe it either. Then, Obito looked at Jiraiya and said firmly, Jiraiya-sama, I have thought about it. I am willing to make a contract with Mount Myoboku. Jiraiya secretly breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Oh, very good. He formed a seal with his hands and slapped them on the ground. Next moment, a large toad with blue and green patterns on its body and orange-red body appeared. A string of prayer beads hung around his neck. The largest Buddhist bead is engraved with the word, loyalty. Obito showed a look of understanding. This is Toma Tadashi, who has entered into a contractual relationship with Jiraiya. It is also Jiraiya's most trusted summoned beast and keeps the summoning contract scroll for him. Toadada opened his mouth and spit out a scroll. He stretched out his tongue and handed it to Obito. Jiraiya said, crossing his arms, This is a contract passed down from generation to generation in our family. Open the scroll and take a look. Well, Obito rubbed his little hands twice in disgust. But he still gritted his teeth, took off the sticky scroll, opened it and spread it on the ground. Jiraiya said from the side, Write your name on the scroll with your own blood, and then stamp it with your 5 fingerprints. The summoning contract will be completed. Yoshi. Obito nodded, indicating that he understood. He bit his finger and wrote his name in the scroll. Then he held his hand and let the blood soak his fingertips. Then it was heavily printed on the scroll. After completing this series of operations, a notification sound also sounded in Obito's mind. Successful selection. Get the reward. Mount Myoboku Senjutsu. He was slightly excited. One of the top power systems in Hokage is here. Seeing that Obito completed the contract, Jiraiya nodded with satisfaction. The next step is to condense the chakra into the hand that signed the contract. Then, just follow the order of Hai Shuyu Shen Wei. Obito nodded. The nimble little hands flew and completed 5 seals in an instant. He raised his right hand and slapped it hard on the ground. Ninpo summoning technique. A puff of smoke appeared. Obito looked over expectantly. What will my first summoning beast be like? A honest voice sounded. Well, wasn't I eating? Who summoned me here? The smoke dissipates. Obito also saw clearly the summoningmon in front of him. This is a small red and orange toad. The height when lying on his stomach can reach Obito's knees. Little Toad also carried 2 short swords of 20 to 30 centimeters on his back. Call him fierce, but also a bit cute. Call him cute, but also a bit fierce. The little toad looked around and understood the situation instantly. Hey, the little guy in blue, was it you who summoned me? Obito nodded and looked curiously at the little toad in front of him. Yes, my name is Uchiha Obito, and I just made a contract with Mount Myoboku. The little toad said, Oh, and raised his hand towards Obito. Hello, my name is Toad Shin, and I am a swordsman. Obito was stunned for a moment and gave the little toad a high five. Hello, please take good care of me in the future. Toad Shin took back his hand. Let's talk about it later, let's talk about it later. I haven't finished my meal yet. Let's go back and eat first. Finished. Todexin disappeared with a pop sound. Obito was somewhat speechless at Toadshin, a dry rice frog. But think about it, Naruto could only summon a tadpole at the beginning. This should be pretty good for me. Jiraiya was on the side, watching this scene with a smile. Summoningmon summoned for the first time. The bond with the contractor is often the deepest. Precipitation over time. The bond between them is even greater than that of friends and relatives. Jiraiya sent Toadata away, clapped his hands and said, Toadletter is a very good junior, and he has a very interesting temperament, as you will know later. Okay, you go back and tidy up, and we're ready to go. Obito hesitated for a while, then nodded in agreement. Okay, Lord Jiraiya. In fact, after receiving the magic reward, he was even thinking about whether he would go to Mount Myoboku again. Of course, you have to go. Mastering magic is one thing. Whether one can use magic skillfully and flexibly is another matter. At Mount Myoboku, he could receive the most systematic inheritance. This was one of the reasons he chose Mount Myoboku. Although Baizush has been crawling for 8 years, it is very embarrassing, but that is a sunk cost. It's better to think about it than to think about it in the beginning. It's better to make the choice that's best for you now. In this regard, Obito's mentality is still very good. He scratched his head and said, But Jiraiya-sama. Can we leave a few days later? Looking at Jiraiya's confused look, Obito explained with a smile. Before I leave, I want to spend a few more days with my girlfriend. Lin is still blaming herself for the death of Nagano-ha. Obito is worried about her mental condition. Nani? Jiraiya was shocked. This kid is so young. He already has a girlfriend. My life in the past few decades has really been a failure. I'll wait for you at the gate of Konoha village in a week. After leaving a word, Jiraiya left in a hurry. He urgently needs to go to the tavern now. Find some beautiful ladies and talk about your sadness. Obito thought that teacher Minato knew that Jiraiya wanted to take him to practice. But when he mentioned this to Mr. Minato, Minato was also very surprised and obviously didn't know anything about it. As a result, Obito was confused. What is Jiraiya's purpose? Who decided to take him to Mount Myoboku to practice? Besides, if he and Jiraiya become masters and disciples, is it okay for me to call Minato-sensei my senior brother? Hey, isn't this just a senior increase? If I want to work with Sage of Six Paths again in the future. Hey, super senior. With all due respect, everyone in the ninja world is my grandson. A week later, Obito carried a small package and arrived outside Konoha village. Jiraiya has been waiting for him here for a long time. Let's go, Jiraiya said with a smile. Obito nodded and responded youthfully. Yoshi. Jiraiya took Obito and walked eastward. On the way, Obito asked in confusion. Jiraiya-sama, aren't we going to Mount Myoboku to practice? Why? Isn't it a reverse summoning technique? Did it go by in a swish? Jiraiya turned his head, looked at Obito meaningfully and said, If you are practicing, don't be in a hurry. Your mind will be confused. Obito was stunned when he heard this. Yes, there seems to be some problems with my recent state of mind. Unexpectedly, Master Jiraiya could see it at a glance. Jiraiya's image in Obito's heart suddenly became taller. A few days later, Obito looked at the building in front of him, and 3 question marks slowly appeared on his head. Like spring soup pool. Jiraiya put his arm around Obito and walked into the building laughing. Yes, this is the country of hot springs, the most famous hot spring pool. Is there any place that can wash away the troubles in people's souls better than the soup pool? The corners of Obito's mouth twitched. I'm so stupid, really. He actually believed what Lord Jiraiya said. Half an hour later, Obito soaked in the hot spring and breathed out a sigh of relief. Jiraiya saw this and smiled proudly. How's it going, little Obito? Do you feel that your heart is much calmer? Obito looked at the girls playing in the soup pool not far away. He nodded heartily. Yes, Lord Jiraiya, I suddenly discovered that this world is still very white. Bah, it's very beautiful. The two of them stopped talking. He squinted his eyes in enjoyment and admired the beautiful scenery around him. The expressions of the old man and the young man at this time were surprisingly consistent. After a while, Obito spoke softly. Jiraiya-sama, I have a friend who died in the war. I was very angry and even had many dark thoughts in my heart. Jiraiya put away his cynicism and said with a serious face. This is normal. Deep inside each of us, there will be a dark side. But whether we can restrain the darkness in our hearts determines who we will become. Obito nodded thoughtfully. I understand, Lord Jiraiya. He did not give up his ambition to reshape the world. But he felt that he might be able to achieve his goal in another way. After the two left the soup pool, Jiraiya planned to take Obito to Mount Myoboku to practice. He warned seriously, Obito, the two immortals responsible for teaching you are very strict. This training can be as short as 3 to 5 months, or as long as 3 to 5 years. You must be mentally prepared. Obito nodded strangely. Okay, Lord Jiraiya, can I say that I have learned the magic of immortality? I went to Mount Myoboku just to learn the advanced tutorials. Kuoji oil Fanao dumplings. Jiraiya used the summoning technique and summoned a giant toad. Subsequently, in Obito's frightened eyes, he pulled him and got into the toad's mouth. Obito looked at the mucus on his body and felt like crying without tears. Isn't this hot spring a waste of time? The big toad closed its mouth, and it suddenly became dark. When I close my mouth, it gets dark, a tearing feeling. When the vision is clear again, Jiraiya led Obito out of the big toad's mouth. Wow! Obito let out an exclamation. The cascading green mountains come into view, and the white clouds linger like a fairyland on earth. Or maybe this is a fairyland. Green water, green mountains, green grass, what a beautiful picture. Jiraiya said with a smile. Let's go, I'll take you to meet the two immortals first. Yoshi. Obito followed Jiraiya's lead. Along the way, we saw many toad statues. These are all poor people who have no aura as protagonists and whose practice of immortality has gone astray. Soon, the two came to a small house on the top of the mountain. Jiraiya didn't knock on the door and pushed Obito in directly. A green toad with white beard and hair and wearing a robe smiled. Oh, it's little Jiraiya. Next to him was a light green toad with purple hair. Obito, who has watched Hokage, knows. These two humble-looking little toads are Fukasaku Sennin and Shima Sennin. Jiraiya nodded slightly and said hello to the two immortals. Then they began to introduce each other to each other. Fukasaku Sennin, Shima Sennin, this child is Uchiha Obito. Obito, these two are Fukasaku and Shima Sennin. Obito greeted politely. Hello you two immortals. Fukasaku Sennin looked at Obito, a strange look flashed in his eyes. This is the great toad sage in prophecy. Did you mention the child who would change the landscape of the ninja world? Hello, little Obito, Fukasaku said with a smile. Shima jumped towards the house. The child's father, it's rare for a guest to come to the house. I'm going to prepare something delicious. Jiraiya's expression changed when he heard this. Two immortals, little Obito will be left to you. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. Fukasaku looked at Jiraiya with a smile. How could you not know the little thoughts in his heart? Go. Jiraiya smiled. Then he said to Obito with a serious face. Obito, you must follow the teachings of the immortals, do you understand? Obito nodded and said, Don't worry, Lord Jiraiya, I understand. Jiraiya nodded slightly with satisfaction. Well, then I'll take the first step, ha 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 ha. Goodbye, Jiraiya-sama. After Jiraiya leaves, Fukasaku led Obito to sit down and started chatting with each other. Fukasaku has no airs. He is very interesting to talk about, and he also knows many secrets of the ninja world. The two of them lost track of time while chatting. It wasn't until Shima jumped out with rice that the two of them stopped still. Shima placed the rice bowl on the table, looked at Obito and said with a smile. Little Obito, try it and see if it suits your taste. Obito looked at the colorful bugs in the bowl, and his face turned green. What is this? This is electronic music. Obito raised his head stiffly. Then he found immortal Shima looking at him expectantly. Don't just look at it, little Obito. You're welcome. Eat it while it's hot. Is this thing really edible? After eating, I won't go straight to barbecue. Master Jiraiya, come back quickly, I can't bear it alone. The system, which is not too troublesome to watch the excitement, gave Obito a question with a ding. Option 1. People who work hard will work hard, and if you don't succeed, you will become a benevolent person. A big bowl of dry rice and a big mouthful of meat. Completion reward. Perfect Sage Mode. Option 2. Even if I, Obito, starve to death and die outside, I will not eat anything from you if I jump from here. Completion reward. Normal Sage Mode. Obito said painfully in his heart. System, I hate you. System, Luo. How else could I choose this? You can only choose one. Obito stretched out his hand tremblingly. He grabbed a handful of worms and stuffed them into his mouth. His eyes lit up. Don't tell me, it tastes pretty good, yuck. Obito felt that there were still bugs squirming in his mouth. I don't know if it's my misunderstanding or Shima-senin didn't cook the rice properly. Obito burst into tears. I worked really hard for the reward. While he was eating, he was vomiting. Eat 2 mouthfuls and spit out 1 mouthful. Finally finished a big bowl of worms with great difficulty. Shima looked at this scene with joy on his face. I didn't expect little Obito to like the food I cooked so much. He even ate my share and his father's share. Nani, everyone in Obito is stupid. System, I hate you. Successful selection. Get your reward. Perfect Sage Mode. Brother System, how are you? Shima took the bowl away and said enthusiastically. The child's father, little Obito, you two wait for me for a while, and I will go and cook you some food. Obito's little face suddenly turned pale. Shima-senin, there's no need to prepare mine, I'm full. Shima-senin said enthusiastically. You kid, haven't I told you everything? You don't need to be polite to me here. Looking at the way you were devouring it just now, you must be not full. I'll make more for you this time. Obito wants to cry but has no tears. I'm really not polite to you. After finishing a meal, Obito felt that his face had become colorful. Okay, now that we are full, let's start practicing. Fukasaku Sage said. Obito's expression perked up and he nodded heavily. Yoshi, Fukasaku and Shima were jumping in front. Obito follows behind. 2 people and 1 frog arrived at Mount Myoboku's training place. Fukasaku grabbed Obito's arm. A layer of sticky stuff was smeared on his arm. This toad oil can attract natural energy and help you practice faster. Shima-senin added from the side. But there are risks. If you can't control the natural energy, little Obito will turn into a frog. Shima wanted to see Obito's panicked look. But what she didn't expect was. Obito didn't even react at all. What kind of reaction can you have? You've got the perfect Sage Mode, but are you still worried about turning into a stone frog? Fukasaku began to explain the essentials to Obito. Absorb the energy circulating in the world and maintain the balance between the 3 energies. When practicing, you should stop the flow of being an animal, find your own balance point, coordinate with nature, and achieve the unity of nature and man. Okay, just try to meditate here, I will watch you from the side. Say it. Fukasaku took out a big black stick that was taller than himself. Then he looked at Obito with a smile. Obito wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. Okay, Fukasaku-senin. He sat cross-legged on top of a giant stone frog. Close your eyes. Start feeling the natural energy between heaven and earth. Soon, natural energy began to flow into his body. Obito warned himself mentally. Be careful, don't go directly into Sage Mode. That would be too shocking. But the next second, Obito's brain didn't even react. He already instinctively uses natural energy. Perfectly blended with chakra. Obito secretly said something bad. I can't control how much I send. Boom. Invisible energy surges. Orange-red facial makeup appeared next to Obito's eyes. The black eyes turned into gold, and the pupils slowly formed a one shape. Bang! The stick in Fukasaku-senin's hand fell to the ground. It's not just him. Beside her, Shima was as dumbfounded as he was. What's the situation? This kid learned to refine chakra in less than a minute. Is this the child of prophecy? How terrifying. Obito scratched his head in embarrassment. I seem to have learned it. Fukasaku's mouth hadn't closed yet, and he nodded with a complicated expression. It should be. Here, wash off the toad oil and try again. Obito nodded hurriedly. Okay, Fukasaku-senin. He rose from the ground and disengaged Sage Mode. I ran to a nearby stream and washed away the toad oil on my arms. Then he climbed up to the top of the stone frog again, closed his eyes and entered a state of cultivation. Boom. Another instinctive integration. Obito entered sage mode again, even faster than before. Obito. Fukasaku. Shima. Obito finally understood. It wasn't because he was too skilled that he instantly entered sage mode. He was too unskilled to control his instinctive reaction. As soon as you absorb the natural energy, subconsciously merge it with chakra. Then it will enter sage mode uncontrollably. Jiraiya. Listen, do you hear what others say? Fukasaku took a deep breath and accepted this fact. The son of prophecy. There's something strange about it. Any questions? No problem. Is it weird to learn to refine chakra in 1 minute? It's really strange. Shima looked at Fukasaku and said. The child's father, since little Obito is already, let's just teach him how to use it. Fukasaku patted his head. Yep, little Obito, I will tell you next how to use the Senjutsu chakra. Konoha, Hokage office. Kakashi looked nervously at the third generation project in front of him. Third generation couldn't help laughing when they saw him like this. Don't be nervous, little Kakashi, your application was approved. Kakashi clenched his fists in excitement. Finally. Thank you, Hokage-sama. The third generation took out a scroll from his arms and handed it to Kakashi. No need to thank you, you earned this with your own merit. Remember to destroy it after reading it. If you don't understand anything, just ask Minato directly. He said half-jokingly. Remember not to spread rumors, otherwise Grandpa will not let you off lightly. Kakashi nodded heavily. I understand, Hokage-sama. Kakashi carefully put the scroll in his arms. Left the Hokage office. After returning home, he couldn't wait to take out the scroll. I saw a few large characters written on the outside of the scroll. Flying Thunder God's Technique. Hylajanauju, Kakashi whispered. After I learn this forbidden technique, I should be able to catch that guy. He never thought that one day, he would be left behind by Obito. This is not possible, the two can be side by side or back to back. But I must not fall behind him. Especially now that Obito has gone to Mount Myoboku to train. You have to work harder. 1 month later, Jiraiya appears again at Mount Myoboku. Fukasaku Sennin, how is the child doing? It's been a month, so he should be able to absorb natural energy on his own, right? That child is more than that. Fukasaku slowly shook his head. Well, Jiraiya was a little confused. It's been a month, has Obito not reached this point yet? This talent is unavoidable, certainly. It's not that Jiraiya doesn't look down on Obito's talent. In his opinion, character is the most important thing for a ninja. It's just that Obito is the son of prophecy. My expectations for him are somewhat higher. Thinking of this, Jiraiya sighed secretly. Alas, I was too impatient. Fukasaku Sennin, where is that little Obito now? Fukasaku Sennin said with a smile. He can already enter sage mode, and he has almost mastered the senjutsu of Mount Myoboku. Jiraiya said subconsciously. You can already enter sage mode, not bad. Jiraiya suddenly reacted and asked with his mouth wide open. What did you say? He has already learned magic. Fukasaku Sennin nodded. Good. Jiraiya stared closely at Fukasaku's face, trying to see if he was joking. Are you looking for my happiness? Fukasaku said with a smile. I don't have that much time. Hey, little Obito is right over there. You can tell by looking at him. Jiraiya looked in the direction of Fukasaku's finger. I saw Obito wearing an immortal face and practicing the magic of immortality. Jiraiya's eyes were filled with shock. Mastered the magic in 1 month. This horse is definitely the son of prophecy. If not, I just picked off the head and threw it into the female soup pool. Seeing Jiraiya's shocked look, Fukasaku chuckled secretly in his heart. Think back to the beginning. When he saw Obito enter sage mode instantly, he had the same reaction as Jiraiya. But later, he gradually got used to it. Maybe there are people who are born with knowledge. Otherwise, this child would not have become the child of prophecy. Jiraiya said hesitantly. Then what happens next? Fukasaku Sennin said. Since this child has learned the magic of immortality, let's take him away. He gave Jiraiya a meaningful look. Remember what Great Toad Sage asked you to do. You can't let him miss that. Jiraiya's heart trembled. I understand, Fukasaku Sennin. One person and one frog stood in the distance, quietly watching the young man practice. After a while, the young man finished his practice. Put away sage mode and run towards this side. Fukasaku Sennin, Master Jiraiya, you are here too. Jiraiya smiled and nodded. Ah, I just heard Fukasaku Sennin say that you performed well and I'll give you a small reward. Obito's eyes lit up when he heard this. What reward? Jiraiya smiled mysteriously. He took out a pamphlet from his arms and handed it to Obito. When you go back, find a place where no one is and take a good look. You will definitely like it. Obito smiled knowingly. Thank you, Jiraiya-sama. Wait, are we going back? Fukasaku stood aside and said with a smile. You have completed your training brilliantly, it is time to leave. Obito was a little reluctant to hear this. Ah, but. Fukasaku jumped onto Obito's shoulder, reached out and patted his head. Little Obito, there is no such thing as a banquet that lasts forever, so don't be too sad. Your friends are still waiting for you, go back quickly. When it comes to the word, friends, Fukasaku paused slightly, but Obito didn't notice either. Fukasaku continued, and if you miss us, you can come back anytime. Mount Myoboku always welcomes you. Obito nodded heavily. I understand, Fukasaku Sennin. Thank you and Shima Sennin for taking care of me during this time, and please say goodbye to her for me. Fukasaku was pleased again and patted Obito's head. Little Obito is a good boy. Jiraiya led Obito and left Mount Myoboku. He looked at Obito who was a little disappointed and said, you have been practicing hard this month. Let's find a place to catch the wind and wash away the dust for you. Obito's eyes lit up. Is it the same place as last time? Jiraiya showed a strange smile. No, it's better than that place last time. After one day, the two were lying side by side on beach chairs. There were two beautiful ladies beside them, stroking their shoulders and legs. Ha, Master Jiraiya, you still know how to enjoy life. Jiraiya laughed twice. Ha ha ha, that's right. How's it going? Do you feel that all the fatigue in your body has been swept away in an instant? Obito let out a comfortable hum. Yes, I feel like I am completely reborn now. After the two young ladies left, Obito's eyes rolled around twice, and he asked with a wicked smile. Jiraiya-sama, do you have a woman you like? Jiraiya was stunned for a moment. It seemed that he didn't expect that Obito would ask him such a question. He pondered for a while and said, there should be, I'm not sure. Obito smiled secretly. A woman who can take your heart must be extraordinary, right? For example, punching a wall with one punch, breaking a Susanna with bare hands, etc. The corners of Jiraiya's mouth curled up slightly. Ah, that's natural, Obito asked next. Then why don't you pursue her? Jiraiya looked a little sad. I didn't think I liked her before, but when I discovered my feelings, I seemed to have missed her. Obito nodded and said nothing more. If you continue talking, the purpose will be too obvious. The two of them basked in the sun for a while, got dressed again and hit the road. 5 days later, the two arrived outside the gate of Konoha village. Obito asked looking at Jiraiya. Jiraiya-sama, don't you plan to return to Konoha? Jiraiya smiled generously. A Yunhei should return to heaven, a wandering dragon should return to the sea, and a man should travel everywhere. Obito showed a true expression. Jiraiya was born to be a prodigal. As a prodigal son. You can't just stay in front of your house every day, right? That's not called a prodigal, that's called a street liar. Then Master Jiraiya, please take care of yourself. Obito said seriously. Jiraiya had turned and left. After hearing Obito's words, he waved to him without looking back. Obito watched Jiraiya leave. He sighed softly. Hey, I hope you can have a good ending this time. Immediately, he strode into Konoha. After being away for so long, I'm finally back. I don't know if everyone misses me. Konoha. Minato's home. Kakashi was facing Minato, leaning forward to greet him. Flying Thunder God technique is really difficult. He thought about it for a month, but still couldn't get started. In desperation, I had to ask Minato for help. And Minato didn't disappoint. The Minato who can play Flying Thunder God to perfection, with all the bells and whistles. Just talking about some of your experiences casually is enough for Kakashi to understand. Let's explain it. Kakashi's understanding of Flying Thunder God technique instantly deepened a lot. Before leaving, Kakashi asked curiously, Mr. Minato, how long did it take you to learn the Flying Thunder God technique? After thinking about it for a while, Minato smiled apologetically. It took so long that the teacher forgot about it. It probably took a few weeks. Weeks. Kakashi was silent. Why do you need to ask more questions? Isn't this looking for excitement? Mr. Minato, I'll leave first. Kakashi said. Minato smiled and nodded. Okay, if you don't understand anything, feel free to ask the teacher. Just when Kakashi was about to leave, there was a knock on the door. Dong dong dong. Mr. Minato, are you at home? I'm back. It's Obito's voice. Kakashi couldn't hide the excitement on his face and quickly opened the door. Then the moment he opened the door, he pretended to be indifferent again. Well, it's you, he said calmly. Obito was a little surprised to see Kakashi. Kakashi, why are you here? He stepped forward and gave Kakashi a hug. Long time no see, ha 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 ha. Kakashi looked disgusted, and let Obito hold him. A long time. Obito let go of Kakashi, looked at Minato in the room and said, Hey, I'm back, Mr. Minato. Minato stood up with a smile and said, It'll be nice to come back. Everyone misses you so much during your absence. Kakashi hummed. I didn't. Obito was annoyed and pushed Kakashi aside. Go, if you don't speak, no one will think you are a fool. The two bickered all the time. Minato has become accustomed to ignoring it. Obito, how was the result of your practice this time? Obito chuckled and said somewhat proudly. That's called a crooked Ryugu. Minato laughed dumbly. Okay, do you want to have dinner at the teacher's house tonight? Let's get together. Obito happily agreed. Okay, then Mr. Minato, I'll go back and talk to Grandma first. Kakashi, you are responsible for informing Lin, it's settled. After saying that, Obito hurriedly ran outside. Kakashi is so speechless that he hesitates to speak. He thought again of the fear of being dominated by a couple that night. The Battle of Canopy Bridge is regarded as the turning point of the Third Ninja War. Brother Kazi is a direct descendant of Hokage, and he also has the cute side of White Fang. In order to win people's hearts, third generation should not be poisonous by giving them a Flying Thunder God. Minato was originally a civilian and had never participated in a ninja war. It's probably because of Jiraiya that I came into contact with Flying Thunder God. To put it bluntly, everything is inheritance. As a person who is supposed to die, now that he can still dance around on the streets, Obito is in a very good mood. I can't afford to be hurt. I really can't afford to be hurt, carrying Tang Sanzang and following the three disciples. Do you have a conscience? If your conscience is taken away by a dog, it will cover tens of thousands of miles. He hummed a little tune and returned to his home. I'm back, Grandma. Grandma walked out with a smile. He grabbed his grandson's arm and looked at him carefully. Grandma thought you would lose weight if you went out to practice, but why is your little face so round? Obito smiled sheepishly. Hey, maybe it's because I've been eating too many high-protein foods recently. We haven't seen each other for a long time. We sat down in the yard and chatted together for a long time. Obito glanced at the time and said, Grandma, I won't be eating at home tonight. The teacher invites everyone to have a dinner together, and Lin Chan will also go there. Grandma nodded and said immediately, Speaking of Xiaolin, when do you plan to take Grandma to meet their parents? You and Xiaolin are not young anymore, you should think about it. Obito's little face turned a little red. Grandma, I'm only 14 years old, still a child. Grandma smiled helplessly. Okay, you're still a child. Then when you go to the teacher's house tonight, do you need to bring a jar of fruit wine? Grandma has brewed a new batch. Obito shook his head hastily. No, Grandma, you should keep it for Uncle Chuan to drink. Fruit wine without additives is not perfect. Grandma patted Obito's back and said. Then go quickly, it's getting late, don't make everyone wait for you. Yoshi, then I'm going, Grandma. Obito walked out the door with a smile. Along the way, I helped 3 old ladies. He finally arrived at Minato's house. Kakashi complained as soon as he opened the door. Obito, you're late again, everyone is waiting for you. Obito smiled and scratched his head. Sorry, because we met on the way. Obito-kun. Before Obito could finish his words, a girl threw herself into his arms. Hey, Lin-chan. Obito picked up the girl and spun her around in the air. In the process of turning in circles, Lin accidentally kicked Kakashi. Kakashi feels that he should be shining brightly now. The three of them sat down at the dining table. Kakashi's nightmare begins. For Obito and Lin, a young couple, a breakup is better than a wedding. When eating, it's called Yunang Minong. If there weren't others around, someone might have died. And was influenced by the two of them. The young couple Minato also started a sweet interaction. It was obviously a dinner party for 5 people, but now it has become 4 people. Oh, because there is still a single dog. I want to create a world without couples. Kakashi thought sadly. At this time, a little guy pushed open the door and entered, breaking the embarrassment of Kakashi alone. Mom, Dad, I'm back. Huh. Brother Obito, Brother Kakashi, and Sister Lin, you are all here. A happy smile appeared on the little boy's face. The little guy has blonde hair and blue eyes, a chubby little face, and looks cute as a duck. You said you were so cute when you were little. Why do you have to squint your eyes when you go to school? Are you afraid that you will fall in love prematurely and seal your appearance? Obito said with a smile. Little Naruto is back. Little Naruto rubbed his little hands in anticipation. Well, Brother Obito, can you accompany me to play for a while? Obito thought for a while. Forming seals with his hands, he summoned a shadow clone. Brother, you still need to eat. Let shadow clone accompany you, okay. Kakashi coughed twice, stood up and said, I've eaten, I'll go with you. Kushina dissuaded. Kakashi, you haven't eaten much yet. Please sit down and eat for a while. Lin echoed. Yes, Kakashi-kun, you will definitely be hungry at night like this. Kakashi shook his head quickly and said, No, I'm so full that I almost vomited it up. Say it. He and Obito are on the left and right. Holding Naruto's little hand, he ran away as if running away. Obito put down his chopsticks in confusion. Kakashi, why are you acting weird today? Do not know. Lin shook her head. He picked up a piece of meat and handed it to Obito's mouth. Obito-kun, open your mouth, after dinner. Kakashi left in a hurry. After Obito sent Lin home. Once again, I strolled along the streets leisurely and contentedly. Madam, where are we going? He held his head in his hands and suddenly remembered something. Well, speaking of, after returning from the battlefield, I seem to have forgotten to say hello to Sister Yuji. Obito broke into a cold sweat. It's been more than a month, and I don't know if Sister Yuji will be angry. Well, I'm just on my way, why don't you go and have a look? I just don't know if Sister Yuji is closed at this late hour. If it's not closed, I can buy something for Minato-sensei. Think of this. Obito walked towards Yuji's pharmacy. Arrive at the door of Yuji's pharmacy. Obito found that the pharmacy was completely dark. Apparently it's closed. The door really isn't open. Obito suddenly narrowed his eyes. Sister Yuji never spends the night in the store, but the door is not locked from the outside. The door should be locked from the inside. And this fluctuation. In the dark night, 2 scarlet eyes lit up. Sharingan. Under the Magatama wheel, Obito's brows frowned slightly. The pharmacy in front of me was suddenly shrouded in a simple barrier. Because the method of arranging the barrier is relatively rough. His Sharingan can capture the chakra on the outer edge of the barrier. What's going on? Sister Yuji is not in danger, right? Obito whispered. He slowly raised his arm, branches surging in his sleeves. As he raised his hands to his face, an orange-yellow Uzumaki-like mask appeared in his hand. Gently place the mask on your face. Obito looked like a ghost and instantly passed through the barrier outside the store. Throughout the process, not a single ripple of chakra. Obito's figure quietly appeared within the barrier. The moment you enter the barrier, he also heard the sounds of conversation. So he quietly jumped onto the rafter. After hiding himself, he looked towards the back room. I saw Yuji sitting on the table with her legs crossed. There were 2 ninjas kneeling in front of her. At this time, her movements revealed an indescribable aura. The usually attractive red and phoenix eyes now have a look of indifference towards all living beings. She doesn't look like a drugstore proprietress, but more like a proud queen. What surprised Obito even more? Two ninjas were half kneeling in front of Yuji. Judging from his appearance and attire, he was definitely not a ninja from Konoha. It's more like the ninjas of Rain Shinobi Village. Yuji. Obito's whole body felt like he was struck by lightning. The scheming frog keeps touching your belly. I should have thought of it earlier. Yuhime is a nobleman from Rain Shinobi Village. Obito thought with some annoyance. But why doesn't Yuhime stay in the land of rain, but instead lives in seclusion in Konoha? Obito perked up his ears and listened intently to the sounds in the room. A Rain Shinobi whispered, "Yuji, our country and citizens need you now more than ever." The other ninja nodded in agreement. The three major countries are fighting against each other in our country of rain, and an organization called Akatsuki has appeared in the country, trying to subvert the entire country of rain. Today, the Kingdom of Rain is experiencing internal and external troubles and is in a state of turmoil. Please come back and take charge of the overall situation. Yuji snorted lightly, with a hint of mockery on her face. What about my stupid brother? Did he get rid of Hanzo because he got in the way? A Rain Shinobi's expression changed slightly. Yuji is joking. Lord Hanzo is loyal to the royal family, how could he do such a thing? It's just that your brother has mediocre qualifications and cannot take on big responsibilities, so. Yuji shook her head and said, "Why not? Isn't my violent father the work of Hanzo and Konoha? If you hadn't revealed my father's whereabouts to Konoha several times, how could the White Fang succeed?" The two Rain Shinobi looked at each other, both at a loss. The Yuji in front of her is too smart. She has seen it all and is tired of it all. Only then did she choose to leave forever, the country that disgusted her. It seems so. I'm afraid it's not easy to fulfill Hanzo-sama's order. A Rain Shinobi gritted his teeth and continued. Lord Hanzo has reached an agreement with Shimura Danzo of Konoha to jointly deal with the Akatsuki organization. After the cancer of Akatsuki is eliminated, Master Hanzo hopes that you can go back and succeed the king. There was a chill in Yuji's words. Oh, are you going to go back and be that Hanzo's puppet? Absolutely impossible. Yuji's performance was too decisive. The two Rain Shinobi were silent. There was sudden silence in the room. Obito was horrified when he heard this from the rafters. The conversation between the three of them just now contained too much information. While they were stopping, Obito started combing his hair. First, the real person in charge of the Rain Kingdom is Hanzo of the Salamander. He plans to take Yuji back and act as his medium in managing the country. Secondly, Yuji's father was actually killed by White Fang. And it was the result of the conspiracy between Rain Shinobi Village and Konoha. But judging from Yuji's settlement in Konoha and various reactions, she didn't seem to hate Konoha. At last, Hanzo of the Salamander plans to kill the Akatsuki organization together with Lao Yincoin. In other words, all that despair has not happened yet. Obito's eyes are getting brighter and brighter. He knows what he should do next. Just as Obito was thinking secretly, a Rain Shinobi stood up, breaking the silence. Sorry Yuji, you must go back with us today. This is Master Hanzo's order. The companion next to him also stood up. The two began to slowly approach Yuji. Yuji smiled teasingly. Oh, are we finally going to break up? Ding. Wong Defa. A sudden sound in my mind. Obito was so frightened that he almost fell off the roof. He took a closer look and saw a multiple choice question in front of him. Option 1. Help Yuji get out of trouble. Completion reward. Yuji's favorability +1. Option 2. Turn a blind eye and let the other party do whatever they want to Yuji. Completion reward. Lurker. Option 3. Quickly inform the third Hokage of what happened here. Completion reward. 0.05 card chakra. Lurker. When you stand in the dark and watch with cold eyes, your presence is not easily noticed by others. I stand by and watch for a lurker. Then if I help, shouldn't I be given a defender? He will definitely not choose options 2 and 3. Yuji treats him well on weekdays. Even if there is no reward, he will help. But, what's the use of my favorability? Obito was puzzled. I am not playing gal game, a love game where I interact with cute girls. I don't want to push it down either. Well, I don't have much thoughts about Yuji either. I choose option 1. It's too late, but it's soon. Obito has a lot of things on his mind. But in fact, only a second or two passed. He quietly jumped down from the rafter. In one step, he arrived behind a ranged shinobi. One hand of the knife knocked him unconscious. Another ranged shinobi was shocked. Before he could turn around, Yuji raised her beautiful leg and kicked him hard on the vital door. Crack! Obito seemed to hear the sound of chickens flying and eggs being beaten. He couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Ranged shinobi let out a painful cry. The whole person instantly bent over. Yuji glanced at Obito, who was in a daze, and said angrily, "What are you still doing? Hurry up." Yuji followed Obito's line of sight and saw the skirt on her body. Only then did she react, and her pretty fair face turned red instantly. Little pervert. Yuji gritted her teeth and picked up a vase. There was a bang sound as it hit the ranged shinobi on the head. Obito shuddered. He looked at the way Yuji looked at him. It seemed like she wanted to shoot him on the head just now. Successful selection. Obtain reward. Yuji's favorability +1. Yuji snorted coldly. He took out a small bottle from his arms and handed it to Obito. Here. Obito was a little confused and asked in a lowered voice. Ahem, what does this mean? Yuji rolled her eyes wide. Honorable Lord Chunin, I haven't seen you for 2 days, why has your voice changed? Obito scratched his head in embarrassment. You can actually recognize me. Yuji held her forehead helplessly. Do you think I can't recognize you because you're wearing a mask? Where did you find such an ugly mask? Take it off quickly, it makes me feel uncomfortable. Obito took off his mask with a puzzled expression. This is unscientific. Once the promised mask is put on, no one will love it. Looking at the depressed Obito, Yuji couldn't help but smile. You little brat, take the antidote quickly, otherwise you will suffer from it later. Obito was shocked when he heard this. Did you take the poison, when? Yuji shrugged her shoulders and said casually. Just as you're talking to those 2 people, even if you don't take action, they won't live long. Obito broke into a cold sweat after hearing this. He quickly opened the small bottle, then raised his head and drank the antidote. After finishing the drink, he whispered, If I had known better, I wouldn't have taken action. The lurker reward is pretty good. Yuhime glanced sideways at Obito. What are you mumbling over there? Obito said with a sneer. Nothing, nothing. He let his mind sink into his body. Carefully feel the changes in your body. I just heard so many secrets. What if Yuji wants to kill him? When Yuji gave him the medicine bottle just now, he had actually thought of this. But he has Hashirama cells. The resistance to poison is still very high. If anything unusual is found, even if you use Kamui to escape, you won't be afraid of being poisoned directly. So even if you have some thoughts in your mind, but he still showed that he trusted Yuji. And Yuji just now, seeing Obito, he drank the antidote he gave him without hesitation. He nodded slightly unnoticeably, and a hint of brilliance flashed in his beautiful eyes. After a while, she asked with a slight hum, Did you hear all the conversations between me and these 2 people? Obito said with a wry smile. That's not true, but I should have heard the most important part. You still make fun of me. Now it seems that your status is much more noble than mine. Speaking of which, I know so much, you won't kill me to silence me, right, Sister Yuji? Yuji stretched out a slender hand and lifted Obito's face. Onion fingers rubbed Obito's face, and an unexplainable smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. That's really hard to say. Obito swallowed and pretended to be horrified. Ah, no, it can't be. Yuji curled her lips and let go of Obito. Poor acting skills. Okay, no need to test anymore, I won't attack you. What I do in Konoha is not a secret. Most of the top brass in Konoha know about it. I was able to get rid of Hanzo thanks to Hokage's help, so I just stayed here. Obito nodded suddenly. I'll just say it. The 3rd generation is cunning, scheming and farsighted. How could he not know about Yuji's existence? Obito asked tentatively. Then Sister Yuji, don't you want to return to your hometown? There was a hint of hesitation in Yuji's eyes. It was a depressing and suffocating place. Obito stood on tiptoes and patted Yuji's shoulder. I understand, Sister Yuji. He glanced at the two unconscious people on the ground and asked, "What should we do with these two people?" Yuji spread her hands and said, "I'll handle it later. It's not the first time the other party has sent someone here." "Ah, this. Sister Yuji, you did this secretly. How many people have you solved?" "Then I go back and pretend nothing happened." Obito nodded slightly and walked towards the door. Yuji looked at Obito's leaving figure. There was a trace of struggle in his eyes. Will you come again in the future?" Obito turned around and said with a smile. "Come here anytime if you need anything. Sister Yuji's service is the best." Finished. Obito left as if running away. By the way, the barrier outside the door was smashed. Yuji slapped the table angrily. "You brat, how dare you take advantage of me?" She complained like this, but there was a smile on his face again. The road to the future is at your feet, hey 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 hey, ha 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 ha. Obito hummed an exciting melody and his steps became brisk. "A new storm has emerged, how can we stand still?" Someone roared in the room. "I'm sorry, you didn't sleep in the middle of the night, why are you crying and howling outside?" Then, a woman's voice came out. "Husband, don't be acquainted with him, let's continue playing poker." "Ah, this. You're talking about me. How could two people play poker after being up most of the night?" Obito shook his head, then smiled again. "Nagato, Konan, Yahiko, hehehehe. Yahiko is not dead yet." Neither Konan nor Nagato fell into despair. The three of them are still full of ideals and full of hope for the world. He is determined to bring peace to the world, rather than granting nuclear peace to the world. They are like a fire in this dark world, but it is always on the verge of extinction. All Obito has to do is let this fire keep burning brightly until it reaches the sky. "It seems I have to go to the land of rain," Obito whispered. The next day Obito got up from bed early. Now the war between Konoha and Rock Shinobi has subsided. The pressure on Konoha was greatly reduced. He was a hero in the Battle of Canopy Bridge. There is no need to go to other battlefields for the time being. Comfortable. Obito stretched his body for a long time. Forming seals with his hands, he summoned a shadow clone. Obito patted Shadow Clone on the shoulder. "Then I'll leave it to you," Shadow Clone said with a smile. "Just leave it to me." Obito nodded. The whole person escaped into the Kamui space. He left a spatial mark in Konoha. If the Shadow Clone dissipates, it can be rushed back at any time. The Kingdom of Rain is a small country. He was also unlucky to be in the middle of the Kingdom of Earth, Kingdom of Wind, and Kingdom of Fire. These three major countries only need to be at war. They will all have a tacit understanding and carry out it in the Kingdom of Rain. Moreover, there are also constant disputes within the Kingdom of Rain. The beacon drums are incessant and disasters and chaos arise, which can be said to mean that the people are in dire straits. This is why Rain Country. A large number of radical thinking ninjas will be born. Obito holds an umbrella, walking in the streets of the Land of Rain. His appearance was incompatible with the local residents. But no one cared. People living here feel indifferent to everything. Even if death comes next moment, they will only feel relieved. "Why?" Obito let out a long sigh. "This world full of despair brings only pain to people. I will change everything, even if it's just for the people around me." Obito's eyes were firm and he escaped into the Kamui space again. He didn't know when Danzo and Hanzo would attack Konan and others. He needed information as quickly as possible. Then take the first step to change the world. Rely on Kamui's terrifying mobility, plus Sharingan's unpredictable illusions. Obito quickly got the information he needed. In Kamui space. Obito's eyes narrowed slightly. Danzo conspired with Hanzo, that's for sure. I just don't know how Madara, or Black Zetsu, will be involved after the plot changes. Well, it's useless to think too much, just go and have a look. Anyway, Kamui doesn't like anyone at first sight. Initially the Akatsuki organization headed by Yahiko, determined to create world peace without resorting to extreme force. In the Land of Rain, this concept is undoubtedly very attractive. In just a few years, the Shao organization has gradually grown and become famous, even growing into a behemoth that terrified Hanzo of the Salamander, the demigod. Of course, Danzo's bewitchment is indispensable behind this. Anyway, Hanzo is worried that the Akatsuki organization will threaten his rule. So he conspired with the old silver coin Danzo to set up a hangman banquet for Yahiko. He used the power of the Akatsuki organization to propose peaceful negotiations to the three major powers. Lure Yahiko and others into a trap. Using the previously captured Konan as a threat, he successfully killed Yahiko. From the results, he snuffed out the only glimmer of light in the darkness. He created a twisted monster with his own hands. Since then, there has been no more light in the ninja world. However, this tragedy has not happened yet. It should be right here. In the continuous rain, Obito rushed to where everything was about to happen. That is, Yahiko and Hanzo of the Salamander agreed on a meeting place. This is a hilly area. Behind the rolling low hills, Anbu is hiding in Konoha, and the ninjas of Rain Shinobi Village. According to the agreed time, Yahiko, Nagato and others will appear in half an hour. During this period, Obito kept rehearsing various situations in his mind. In my impression, Danzo and Hanzo did not send anyone to intercept and kill the remaining members of the Akatsuki organization. Well, White Zetsu and I were the ones who did it, which means I can probably use this as a reference. If a member of the Akatsuki organization still hasn't arrived, it means Black Zetsu may have entered the scene. Time passed unconsciously. When Obito sees Yahiko and Nagato appear, still unable to hold it back, he let out a long sigh. They don't have any subordinates. They are really two naive guys. Obito shook his head. Nothing great can be achieved by being too idealistic. I came back well and talked to these two people. Staying till the end is the right way. Hanzo stood on the top of the mountain, surrounded by many ninjas, still holding a restrained Konan in his hands. When Yahiko saw this scene, his expression couldn't help but change. Hanzo-sama, what on earth is going on? Hanzo said coldly. Your organization is too much of a hindrance to me. He raised a kunai and lightly scratched Konan's neck. Yahiko, as the leader, you die here. If you resist, this woman will die. The light in Yahiko's eyes disappeared. How? How can it be repaired? He had always regarded Hanzo as his idol. I want to imitate him and pursue peace for the Kingdom of Rain. On the day he was recognized by Hanzo, he was secretly happy for a long time. But when he went to the appointment with great joy, what happened was this. He hates it. Hanzo didn't want to talk to Yahiko. He threw the kunai in his hand heavily in front of the two of them. That red-haired guy over there, kill Yahiko with this and I'll let you and the woman live. Nagato's body trembled. Me, what should I do? Konan shouted from the mountain. You two, run away and leave me alone. The rain slid down Konan's cheeks, taking away the sparkle in her eyes. Looking at his beloved woman, Yahiko quickly made a decision. He whispered expressionlessly, Nagato, kill me. Nagato was still dazed and seemed unable to accept the reality. Yahiko yelled at him, Nagato, pick up the kunai on the ground and kill me. Nagato picked up the kunai blankly and slowly pointed it at Yahiko. The heart-rending scream of Konan on the mountain. Stop it, Nagato. A flash of relief flashed across Yahiko's face. Nagato, you have to live well with Konan. Say it. He was about to hit the kunai in Nagato's hand. But at this moment, a sudden change occurred. A voice that did not belong to either party suddenly sounded. The loud sound echoed in the mountains. What I hate the most in my life is guys who play tricks and hide behind their backs to hurt people. I bother. Hanzo silently glanced at the short sword that pierced his abdomen. Quote. Question mark. With some doubts in his eyes, he slowly turned his head. You said that what you hate most in your life are those who hurt others behind their backs. And then, he stabbed Lousy from behind. What came into view was a Konoha Anbu. Hanzo seemed to understand everything instantly. I see, Shimura Danzo is really good at calculating. Among the Anbu ninjas of Konoha, Danzo's confidants were shocked and said, Hanzo-sama, you have misunderstood. This person is definitely not from my Konoha Anbu. He is sowing discord. Hanzo's consciousness has begun to blur. The poison sac in his abdomen was pierced. Even he couldn't resist the toxin of the sandpepper fish. The sudden change shocked everyone. Yahiko was even more stunned in Nagato's arms. The two hugged each other and stared at the top of the mountain with wide eyes. Yahiko said dumbfounded. What's going on? Are they fighting among themselves? Nagato nodded absently. Okay, it seems like. Needless to say, this Konoha Anbu is naturally Obito in disguise. He held Hanzo in his arms with his backhand and said in a passionate voice. Yes, I am indeed not from Konoha Anbu. No name, no feelings. No past, no future. What supports the big tree of Konoha village behind it is the will of our roots that are deeply rooted in the earth. The rain shinobi all looked in the direction of Konoha. One by one, they clenched the weapons in their hands. The presence of Konoha roots. For them, it's not a secret. Rain shinobi looked around with hatred and wary eyes. Danzo's confidant was so anxious that he almost cursed. This person is not from my roots. This is a slander against my roots. At this time, someone in Konoha's team whispered. But squad leader, this kind of slogan, only the people in my circle know it. Could it be true that Lord Danzo gave the order? But he didn't tell me to wait. Danzo's confidants are mired in self-doubt. Is that so? It seems to make sense. But Hanzo said in a daze as he was already on his deathbed. Your assassination technique is so superb that I, Hanzo, am completely convinced. Can you tell me your name? Let me know by whose hands I died. Obito shook his head simply and said. No, the people who belong to me cannot be named. But Lord Danzo asked me to bring you a message. Chapter 81. Obito leaned close to Hanzo's ear and whispered. Master Danzo said that he will bear the blame. Hanzo could no longer hear what Obito was saying. He had already lost his life and fell weakly into Obito's arms. Considered the pinnacle of the ninja world. The demigod, who once defeated Sannin. Hanzo of the salamander. And thus fell. Obito let go of Hanzo. Then he raised the knife in his hand and rushed towards Rain Shinobi on the opposite side. Come on, for the great cause of Lord Danzo, kill these Rain Shinobi. Behind him, several root ninjas suddenly lost their sight. The next moment he pulled out the knife without hesitation and rushed over with Obito. Stop, stop, who told you to attack? Danzo's henchmen yelled anxiously, but to no avail. Especially when people start going down on both sides. This battle can no longer stop. This time Danzo sent Konoha Anbu. Almost all ninja from his roots. Obito cheated these guys without any psychological burden at all. The root ninjas and the ninjas of Rain Shinobi village are both elites here. Those who are killed are inseparable, you and me. As the instigator, Obito secretly sighed. That's so outrageous. There are obviously only 17 people in the organization at the root, but here, he has at least 3 figures. After Obito changed his body shape, he quietly escaped from the melee. He grabbed Conan's hand and said speechlessly. What are you doing standing still? Run away. Conan was dragged by him and jumped downwards. Now, not many people care about Yahiko and the others anymore. There were only a few people behind him, chasing Obito and Conan. Obito opened his little mouth like this and spit out fireballs like this. The people who were chasing him disappeared immediately. The kind that turned into dregs, even the money for the coffin was saved. The two of them ran all the way to Nagato and Yahiko. Yahiko asked with some confusion. Who are you? Obito said hurriedly. It's too late to explain, come on. Let's leave first. He held Conan's hand and ran ahead. Yahiko and Nagato looked at each other and hurriedly followed. While the 4 were escaping, ninjas from Roots and Rain Shinobi village are constantly chasing after him. But Yahiko and Nagato are not weak. The two of them threw away their skills while running, and quickly eliminated the pursuers. Obito, who was running, suddenly turned his head and looked somewhere. A black shadow was startled and instantly escaped into the ground. How can this person's perception be so sharp? And who is this guy? A good plan, but he got messed up. Obito's brows wrinkled slightly. Madara, or Black Zetsu also entered the scene as expected. But Obito's brows stretched and the corners of his mouth raised slightly. Don't you like to hide in secret and manipulate the fate of others? Don't you feel that you have no plan left and everything is under control? I'm here all of a sudden for you. Are you confused? After the 4 people got away from the ambush, Yahiko finally couldn't help but said. Hero, could you let go of Conan first? Obito was stunned when he heard this. He glanced at Conan, who was blushing next to him. Only then did he realize that he was holding someone else's little hand and running all the way. He smiled, scratched his head and said, Sorry, the situation was urgent just now, I didn't pay much attention. Seeing that Obito finally let go of his beloved girl's hand, Yahiko's face also looked much better. The three of them looked at each other. They all have the feeling of surviving a disaster. Yahiko looked at Obito and said seriously, Thank you for your help just now. The three of us owe you our lives. He's not stupid. Naturally, I can guess that Obito was responsible for everything just now. Obito said with a smile. I'm not just here to save you, I'm here to save this desperate world. It is because of your presence that I see a glimmer of hope in the darkness. As soon as Obito said these words, another wave of favor with Yahiko and the other three. Conan asked, looking at Obito. Who? Are you? Have we known each other before? Well, Obito was caught in a tangle. I was honest with Yahiko and others. Or should you wear a vest and walk around the world? Ding. Host, don't worry, I'll give you your debut question. With a shout from the system, a curtain of light appeared in front of Obito's eyes. Option 1. If I treat others with sincerity, others will also treat me with sincerity. Inform Yahiko and others of your true identity. Completion reward. Start subsequent tasks. Option 2. People are wandering in the rivers and lakes, and the trumpet is arranged. Come up with a cool name and tell it to Yahiko and others. Completion reward. Name +1. Option 3. Turn around and leave with a big smile, telling Yahiko and others, we are not destined to meet you next time. Completion reward. Half step with a smile. Bamboo Dian with a smile. Not only is it highly toxic, but it's also delicious. It is a must-have medicine for traveling at home and killing people. Hiss. This is the first time Obito has seen it. The system releases tasks with such strong direction. The rewards of the three options can be summarized in one sentence. As long as there is nothing wrong with your mind, hurry up and choose one for me. ... What else is there to say? Just follow the big brother of the system and that's it. I choose option 1. Obito took off his mask, revealing a childish face. He looks about the same age as us. Nagato thought to himself. Obito pondered for a moment and then spoke. My name is Uchiha Obito, and I am a ninja of Konoha. In addition, I also have an identity, that is, Lord Jiraiya's apprentice, or rather his disciple. To sum up, we are from the same school. The three of them showed astonished expressions. The boy in front of me is actually Mr. Jiraiya's apprentice. Nagato couldn't help but ask. Jiraiya-sensei, is he okay? Obito thought about Jiraiya's daily life. He nodded firmly. Jiraiya-sama has a fulfilling and fun life every day. At the same time, he added silently in his mind. If you don't carry rice or practice filial piety in the future, Master Jiraiya could do better. Yahiko grabbed the two excited companions. He shook his head at them imperceptibly. He had just experienced a backstabbing, and now he didn't want to trust anyone anymore. He protected Conan and Nagato behind him. He asked, narrowing his eyes and looking at Obito. Although you saved us, it's too much of a coincidence that our teachers come from the same school, right? How do you prove that you are our junior brother or nephew? Obito said calmly. This is simple, just wait for me for a moment. He directly put his hands together and entered sage mode. The orange eye shadow and the toad-shaped pupil lines can be said to be distinctive features. How about this? Is this enough to explain my identity? He said proudly. However, the three Yahiko people across from them looked confused. Conan asked directly, What are you doing? Well, Obito scratched his head and exited sage mode. Could it be that these three people have never seen Mount Myoboku's sage mode? Hiss, it's possible. Pretending to be X failed. Obito bit his finger and slowly began to form seals. It seems I have to use that to prove my identity. Jiraiya-sama signed a summoning contract with Mount Myoboku. You should all know this. The three Yahiko looked at each other and nodded. Obito breathed a sigh of relief. That's no problem, you're welcome, who's asking for amputation? He raised his hand and slapped it on the ground. The next second, a medium-sized toad appeared in front of several people. Where's my meal? Toadexon looked around. When he saw Obito, how could he not understand what happened? He said with a long sigh. Uchiha Obito, Right, why do you always summon me at meal times? Look, you don't need to kill anyone here. I still have half a bowl of rice left, so I'll leave first. Finished. Obito didn't even have a chance to say hello. Todexin went back with a pop sound. Yahiko. Nagato. Konan. Obito. Ahem, now you should believe that I studied under Jiraiya-sama, right? Yahiko nodded in relief. Then he smiled apologetically. Yes, I was really sorry just now, little junior brother. Because we just experienced Hanzo's betrayal, I'm worried that you have ulterior motives for us. Obito also smiled and said, it's okay, I understand. In fact, he had some selfish motives for saving Yahiko and others. It's really not pure. However, he had no intention of taking advantage of the three of them. But I want to establish a cooperative relationship with them. With Jiraiya, this layer of connection is there. The distance between the four of them suddenly became much closer. The three war orphans finally let go of their guard in front of Obito. Konan whimpered and hugged Yahiko and Nagato. Ooh, Yahiko, Nagato, I thought I would never see you again. Yahiko patted her back gently. It's okay, Konan, it's all over. Aren't we all fine now? After the three of them vented their emotions, the four of them sat on the ground together and started chatting. Konan asked curiously, Jiraiya-sensei, have you settled down now? Obito shook his head and said, no, Lord Jiraiya is still the same as before, wandering around and living in no fixed place. Yahiko said helplessly, the teacher is such an old man, why don't you have a family? Obito said with a cheeky smile, let me tell you a little secret. Actually, Master Jiraiya already has a woman he likes. Nagato's eyes widened and he couldn't help but ask, really, really? Obito nodded firmly. Of course it's true, and you all know this person, she is. In the middle of his words, Obito deliberately let it slip. That is. Konan looked at Obito expectantly, waiting for his next words. Yahiko punched Obito angrily. You should tell me who it is, and don't show off, little junior brother. Obito laughed. This person is Tsunade-sama. Nagato looked like he was eating a huge meal. Yahiko also looked shocked. This can't be done. However, Konan clapped his hands with a determined look on his face. I knew it. I've long thought that the teacher has fallen in love with Tsunade-sama. I tell you, omit an argumentative essay here. After listening for a while, Yahiko couldn't help but interrupt Konan's tirade. Stop, stop, stop. Only then did Konan stop, still unfinished. How about Mina-san, do you think my analysis makes sense? Nagato was stunned when he heard this. Konan, you have only met Tsunade-sama a few times in total, and you can analyze so much content. Konan stuck out his tongue playfully. That's because I have a keen eye. The three men present rolled their eyes in unison. Why do you think it's because you are 2/8 trigrams? Rinnegan is not as sharp as you. Yahiko said with some confusion while holding his head. Then since the teacher likes Tsunade-sama, why don't you confess your love to her? Nagato also echoed. Yes, the relationship between the teacher and the two should be very good to begin with. Obito thought for a while and said, maybe you're afraid that Tsunade-sama will lose his temper one day and accidentally beat him to death. It's not like you don't know, Jiraiya-sama, that you don't have a formal attitude every day, and you just get into the little sister's arms whenever you have time. The three Yahiko nodded in sympathy. It really is. Yahiko stood up directly. No, as the teacher's beloved disciples, we must help the teacher solve his lifelong problems. Konan responded immediately. Yes, I support Yahiko's view. Nagato whispered. I think the same as you too. Obito patted his chest and said seriously. Please count me in, I also want to bring them together. The four of them chatted happily. You say something to me. Just arranged all the major events in Jiraiya's life. Even where he and Tsunade will be buried in the future, several people have already made plans. For example, burial at sea, ahem. After a while, Yahiko asked casually, Junior brother, aren't you from Konoha? Why did you suddenly come to the land of rain? The joyful atmosphere became a little heavy. Both Konan and Nagato kept their mouths shut. Obito thought for a moment and then said, it's a long story. It's a bit of a coincidence that I met you. Your country's Yuji is now in my Konoha, and the relationship between the two of us is pretty good. Yuji. Yahiko's expression changed slightly, but he didn't say anything, and motioned Obito with his eyes to continue. Obito understood and continued. One night I accidentally bumped into her conversation with two Rain Shinobi, and heard that Hanzo was planning to attack Akatsuki. I know that Akatsuki was created by you, and I also know that you are Master Jiraiya's disciples, so. Obito truthfully lists the logical relationships before and after. But it is very clumsy and hides some key points. For example, where did he learn about the relationship between the three of them and Jiraiya? Anyway, as long as it's generally right, small details like this. Firstly, it is not eye-catching, and secondly, it is difficult to verify. Yahiko said nothing, silently digesting the information given by Obito. Yuji stopped showing up a few years ago. Some people said that she was hidden by the royal family, while others said that she was eliminated by Hanzo. I didn't expect Yuji to go to Konoha. Conan whispered. Obito said with a sigh. It's because she was very disappointed in the Kingdom of Rain. It can even be said that she was desperate, so she chose to leave. Yahiko and the other three lowered their heads, their eyes dim. If I hadn't grown up in the land of rain. The three of them didn't want to stay on this land. If you can choose. They also want to be born in a country bathed in peace. Obito watched the three of them become depressed. Shin said that it seems that this incident has dealt a big blow to them. No, we have to give them some chicken soup. Obito cleared his throat and spoke impassionedly. But the Kingdom of Rain still has you, right? And now is the best opportunity for change, the Kingdom of Rain. Now that Hanzo of the Salamander is dead, don't you have the confidence to turn the Rain country into a pure land? As long as you can give Yuji a glimmer of hope, I'm sure she will come back regardless of everything and work with you to rebuild the Kingdom of Rain. Under Obito's impassioned speech, the three of them raised their heads again, hope rekindled in their eyes. When Obito saw that the effect was good, he was immediately convinced. The will of fire will not deceive me. Wherever the mouth escapes, the fire will continue to grow. So next, it's time to give them some ideas of their own. Obito looked the three of them directly in the eyes and said. Like you, I also want to change the world and let peace pour into every inch of the land. But on the road to pursuing peace, war is inevitable, and you should also understand this. Unless you show enough strength, no one will care about what a few unknown people think. Yahiko and the other three nodded secretly, although they are idealists. But we are not naive enough to think that communication alone can solve everything. The achievements that the Akatsuki organization has today are all achieved with real swords and real guns. Everywhere they go, they try to communicate first. Everyone is happy, or not. Then prepare for the funeral. Anyway, if the guys who started the war are dealt with, peace will naturally come. After hearing what Obito said, Nagato couldn't help but ask. Then what do you think we should do now? Yahiko and Conan also looked at Obito, anticipating his next words. Obito coughed twice and said, Ahem, I have an immature idea that we can discuss together. Rain Shinobi Village is now leaderless. The elites are fighting with the roots again, and their strength is probably not as good as before. Yahiko's eyes became bright and he licked the corners of his dry mouth. You mean? Obito nodded and said, yes, I think we can attack Rain Shinobi Village directly and complete the integration of the power of the Kingdom of Rain. In this way, from now on, the Kingdom of Rain will only make one sound, and that is the sound of Akatsuki. Everyone in the Kingdom of Rain has only one pursuit, and that is the pursuit of peace. The three Yahiko looked at each other and saw the excitement in each other's eyes. This is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Conan couldn't help but ask further. What about after we take down Rain Shinobi Village? After that, Obito thought for a while and said, a country of rain with a dangerous geographical location and a completely new look will become the target of major powers vying to win over it. We can choose to form an alliance with one major power and reach a peace agreement with the other two major powers. Yahiko's brows furrowed slightly. Is this big country you are talking about the country of fire? Obito makes no secret of his thoughts. Yes, the fire country is definitely the most suitable ally for the rain country. Yuji, Lord Jiraiya, or me, are inextricably linked to the land of fire. And Konoha has never taken the initiative to provoke a war. This is rare among major powers. I believe you must have heard about it. Yahiko's brows slowly widened. What my junior brother said is right. The Kingdom of Fire is indeed the best choice for the Kingdom of Rain. But let's wait until we win Rain Shinobi Village. Yahiko glanced at the sky and suddenly realized. We should go back, otherwise Juzuke, Dabutu and the others will be worried. Obito also glanced at the sky. I don't understand how Yahiko judges time. The land of rain is always shrouded in clouds and is always dark. Nagato said thoughtfully. Speaking of which, it's a good thing we didn't take everyone with us to the appointment, otherwise. Yahiko and Konan looked scared when they heard this. Obito opened his mouth, but seemed hesitant to speak. If nothing else happens, Yahiko and his companions may have become too cold at this time. Yahiko stood up and said with a smile. Then let's go back quickly, just in time to bring our junior brother to meet everyone. Konan also had a smile on his face. Yes, Juzuke and his junior brother have quite similar personalities, so they should have many topics in common. Meeting old friends after a disaster should be the most beautiful thing in the world. Pity. Nagato patted Obito's shoulder and asked with some confusion. What's wrong, Obito-kun, aren't you a stranger? Everyone gets along well. Obito forced a smile and said. No, let's set off. They looked at Yahiko with smiles on their faces. Obito didn't know what to say. The four returned to the base of the Akatsuki organization. Looking at the empty hall, Yahiko scratched his head. Strange, where has everyone gone? Nagato suddenly said as his mind was wandering. They're not looking for the two of us, right? The two looked at each other and their expressions changed. He rushed outside like crazy. Konan and Obito hurried to follow. When walking quickly to a dense forest, Nagato and Yahiko stopped and looked forward with trembling eyes. Konan from behind asked with some confusion. What's wrong, Yahiko, Nagato? When she walked to the two of them, a line of clear tears flowed from her eyes. Everyone, what the hell is going on? Blood stained the ground red, and the eyes were full of devastation. The familiar companions from the past still have their voices and smiles in my ears. But now he was lying on the ground with no eyes open, turning into cold corpses. The honest Daibatsu, the naughty Hadosuke, and Kawaki who pursues Konan. Nagato couldn't accept the scene before him. Next moment, a terrifying wave centered on him and suddenly spread in all directions. Boom! Yahiko and Konan, who were unable to dodge, were instantly blown away by the strong repulsion. Obito's body instantly hollowed, appeared behind Yahiko and caught him. Konan was not so lucky and flew backwards more than 10 meters away. It wasn't until he broke several trees that he stopped. Yahiko struggled to get up from Obito's arms. He ran towards Konan who was standing aside. Konan, are you okay? I'm fine. Konan said he was fine, but actually his head was buzzing. Lying in Yahiko's arms, unable to stand up at all. And Nagato released the terrifying power just now. At this moment, it seemed as if all the strength in his body had been drained away. His legs weakened and he fell weakly to the ground. Fortunately, Obito arrived in time and caught him with quick eyes and hands. Nagato's eyes were filled with anger. Just one look at his deep eyes can make you feel like you are facing an abyss. Big Buddha, Juzuke. How dare they? I'm going to kill them. Obito secretly thought something was wrong. His hand reacted faster than his brain and slapped Nagato. Nagato looked at Obito with cold eyes. He seemed to be thinking about whether or not to reward Obito with a spicy shot. Simoder. Obito was shocked when he saw him, and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. He sighed and beat his chest. He said to Nagato in a heartbroken tone. Please wake up quickly, Nagato. You hate those people so much and have fought with them for so long, but you are finally going to become one of them. No ideal in this world is worth the price of such perdition. Obito's touching words directly touched Nagato's heartstrings. A flash of clarity passed through his mind. Nagato's whole body softened and he whispered with some self-blame. I failed to control that power. And I hurt everyone. At this time, Konan's condition has also recovered somewhat. Although her health bar is a bit thin, her health regenerates relatively quickly. With Yahiko's help, Konan came to Nagato's side and gently put his hand on his shoulder. It's not your fault, Nagato, it's those eyes. Nagato curled up into a ball and buried his head deeply. I'm afraid of my own power. Jiraiya-sensei taught me ninjutsu just to let me control this power. But now that the teacher is gone, I can't control myself. Konan squatted next to Nagato, hugged Nagato and said, although the teacher is no longer with us, you still have Yahiko and I. We will always be with you. Nagato remained silent and didn't speak. Yahiko snapped. Nagato, you are destined to change this country, and even the world. You will be the bridge to peace and we will all be your pillars. Now, cheer up. Nagato slowly raised his head, tears welling up in his eyes. Can I really do it? But, Shao, is gone. Yahiko and Konan's hearts also sank. They have experienced too many changes today, and they have even become numb with heartache. Finally escaped death, but suddenly I found like-minded partners. Brothers and sisters who struggled and grew up with them. All died tragically at the hands of others. Now, they only have each other left. Even Yahiko, who has always been optimistic, is feeling depressed at this moment. Obito sighed and said seriously, as long as you three are still there, as long as your spirit is still there, Akatsuki will not disappear. I know you are in despair. You feel like your eyes are filled with darkness and you can't see any light. But isn't dawn the light that breaks through the darkness? Everyone in the Kingdom of Rain is counting on you. Yahiko clenched his fists and said with firm eyes. Junior brother is right, we cannot let the sacrifices of the Buddha and others be in vain. We cannot fall yet, we must shoulder the expectations of the Buddha and others and keep moving forward. Konan and Yahiko's moods also improved. But grief is inevitable. Obito looked into Nagato's eyes with a thoughtful expression. Speaking of which, senior brother Nagato's eyes and the power just now. Yahiko explained for Obito. Nagato's eyes are very special. They are the Rinnegan possessed by the legendary sage of six paths. He hesitated for a moment, then continued. Someone came after the three of us because of Nagato's Rinnegan before. He said that their mission since ancient times is to give correct guidance to those who open the Rinnegan. They also said that when Nagato truly masters the power of the Rinnegan, he will be able to create our world immediately. Obito's eyes narrowed slightly. Needless to say, this person must have been sent by Uchiha Madara. Then there is no need to ask about the appearance. After all, White Zetsu can shape the face at will. What happened next? Obito asked. Konan said from the side. Later he was driven away by us. Yahiko felt that the other party might want to take advantage of us. Yahiko said with determination. He's definitely trying to take advantage of us. Obito said with a solemn expression. Brother and sister, have you ever thought that maybe the tragedy in front of you was caused by this person? The purpose is to allow senior brother Nagato to activate the power of Rinnegan in grief. Yahiko was shocked when he heard this. What the junior brother said is not impossible. The only person Hanzo of the Salamander wanted to kill from the beginning to the end was himself. If he wanted to get rid of the entire Akatsuki organization, he could simply kill them all. There is no need to deceive him alone and then send people to intercept and kill the remaining members. This is completely unnecessary. Why? Nagato let out a suppressed roar. Why do I have these eyes? I never thought about getting this power. Although Obito can feel Nagato's pain. But he still felt that Nagato was a bit Versailles. Do you know how many people want these eyes? The Rinnegan you don't want, but someone is vying for it. Ding. Please listen to the question. The system's voice suddenly sounded. It almost scared Obito to death. I hear you are a big-headed ghost, but I can't see with my eyes. Obito looked at the light screen in front of him unhappily. Important reminder. This choice will affect the development of the main plot. Host, please choose carefully. Important note. If you fail to complete this multiple choice question, the host will never be able to be opened, and subsequent Hashirama cell development tasks will be carried out. Ah, is this kind of mission again? Obito's brows knit together and he looked at the options carefully. Option 1. With Nagato's consent, extract 1/2 of Rinnegan's pupil power. Completion reward. Current chakra doubled. Option 2. When Nagato is not paying attention, dig out a pair of his Rinnegan and offer it to this system, Jia. Completion reward. Kamui Tianjung. Option 3. There are things a gentleman does and things he doesn't do. From a pair of Rinnegan, I would take 1. Completion reward. Current chakra doubled. Kamui Tianzhong. Powerful offensive eye technique. Centering on himself, he will deflect all surrounding objects and ninjutsu and cause damage to them. Hiss, the system is at odds with Nagato. Obito muttered in his mind. Quote. Did you dig out Nagato's eyes? Obito remained calm and looked at Nagato beside him. It's not just Nagato. Even Konan and Yahiko were defenseless against him. If he wanted to, you can instantly get rid of Yahiko and Konan with their backs turned. Then kill Nagato and dig out his eyes. As long as the three of them are buried together in the Kingdom of Rain, no one will know what happened today. He can even break Madara and Black Zetsu's plan once and for all. Forget it. Obito looked at the three people who were not at all wary. Silently put away the thoughts in his heart. Not his holy mother. If he had to choose between Nagato and saving the world, he won't hesitate to attack Nagato. There will never be a hint of softness. But he has a system in place. Give him a few more years and he'll have everything. There is no need for a wave of shady money. Who dares to disobey then? Directly ask the great Buddha of Susanoo, and destroy the country if you say it will be destroyed. Not to mention the eyeballs that were picked out, have to be handed over to the system. Kill all three of them just for a skill reward. Although this reward is indeed awesome. It can make up for his shortcoming of having no attack methods when in the body whole. But it's really not necessary. But Rinnegan's power is really delicious. Obito thought to himself. I don't know how many chapters it will take me to open my own Rinnegan. He looked at the light curtain with his mind and marked option 1 on the answer sheet. After Obito made his choice, he spoke slowly. Speaking of which, I do know some secrets about Rinnegan, which may be helpful to senior brother Nagato. As soon as he said these words, he immediately attracted the attention of 3 people. Nagato stared directly at Obito, his eyes filled with anticipation. Yahiko stood up directly, held Obito's shoulders, and asked eagerly. What's the secret? You should tell me quickly, little junior brother. Konan felt helpless and tugged on Yahiko's sleeve. Yahiko, don't be anxious first, let me speak slowly. Yahiko let go of Obito with apology, he was a little impatient just now. I'm sorry, junior brother, It's okay, senior brother Yahiko. Obito smiled at Yahiko and told him not to take it to heart. In the secret history of my Uchiha clan, passed down from generation to generation, there is a description of Rinnegan. Rinnegan is known as the eye that controls life and death. It is the most noble eye power in this world. It can give the initiate the ability to create and destroy the world. But what few people know is that Rinnegan was actually born out of Sharingan. In the secret history records, there was someone from my Uchiha clan who opened the Rinnegan under the confluence of yin and yang. Yahiko and others' eyes lit up when they heard this. Among the Uchiha clan, there are actually records about Rinnegan. Will it mention the method of mastering Rinnegan? Obito paused subconsciously. Yahiko couldn't help but urge. Go on, little junior brother. Okay, senior brother, please be patient. Obito comforted Yahiko and continued helplessly. I mean, logically speaking, senior brother Nagato cannot activate Rinnegan. So his eyes are probably man-made. Konan let out an exclamation. What, you mean, not bad? Obito nodded. Senior brother Nagato should have the blood of the Uzumaki clan. He has an almost terrifying chakra in his body. He is the best carrier of the Rinnegan. I guess someone might have transplanted these eyes to senior brother Nagato when he was still young for some purpose. Upon hearing this, Nagato lowered his head silently. Although he has been troubled by Rinnegan's power. But he always thought he was special. But in the end, are you just a tool for others? Yahiko clenched his fists and cracked his knuckles. This matter must be related to the person who came to us before. You actually used Nagato as a tool. Looking at the excited Yahiko and the depressed Nagato, Obito's eyes were slightly complicated. Yahiko and others easily believed his words. It shows that they have accepted themselves from the bottom of their hearts. But in order to complete the task, he was not magnanimous. This is really, Konan asked aloud while comforting Nagato. Junior brother, what should we do? Obito said in a deep voice. I have a way to help senior brother Nagato control his pupil power, so that the mastermind behind the scenes can steal the chicken but lose the rice. It's just this method. Seeing the hesitant Obito, Yahiko was almost anxious to death. My dear little junior brother, can't you finish what you said in one go? Nagato also nodded. Obito's broken sentence made him unable to get up or down. Even the depression was forgotten. Obito said with a wry smile. The main reason is that this method is a bit extreme. Let me finish it in one breath first, and then we can discuss it together. Yahiko urged. Okay, then tell me quickly. Obito said hurriedly. Because Rinnegan's eye power is so terrifying, it's difficult for senior brother Nagato to truly master it. And frequent use of pupil techniques will excessively consume the chakra in the body and even consume one's own life force. Nagato secretly agreed with Obito's words. Every time he used Rinnegan's power, he felt like he was being hollowed out. Obito continued, I can use my own blood to extract part of Rinnegan's eye power. In this way, senior brother Nagato can quickly master the power of Rinnegan, and he doesn't have to worry about the burden on his body when using the eye technique. But the operation of extracting the pupil power is irreversible. Once the pupil power is extracted, senior brother Nagato will lose this part of the pupil power permanently. So I say this method is a bit extreme. What do you think of it, brothers and sisters? Yahiko and Konan looked at Nagato. The two of them saw from Nagato's twinkling eyes that his heart was moved. It's better than holding on to a heavy hammer that you can't control and may hurt yourself at any time. It's better to reduce the weight of the hammer and make it easier to use. What suits you is the best. It's not my own strength anyway. Let go of the parts you can't control. Nagato doesn't feel bad at all now. Yahiko looked at Obito and said hesitantly, Junior brother, where will the extracted pupil power go? Obito said without hesitation and above board. I know what senior brother is worried about. I don't have the qualifications to activate Rinnegan right now, so I can't keep this terrifying eye power at all. In the process of extracting pupil power, I will indeed get some benefits. But most of the pupil power extracted will be swallowed up by some indescribable existence. Everything Obito said is true. Extract part of Rinnegan's eye power. It is indeed beneficial to both parties. The only little trick he had. It just hides the existence of the system. He seemed to be moved by Obito's sincere attitude. Yahiko no longer questioned anything else, but looked at Nagato and asked. Nagato, what do you mean? Nagato said without hesitation. I agree. Whip it. Whip me. He has long been tired of this and cannot control his life. Like I always ignore the risks and browse some, ahem. He lives in fear every day. Worried that one day I will suddenly lose control. Worried that this power will hurt Konan and Yahiko. He didn't want to go on like this anymore. He wants to completely control these eyes. Take control of your own destiny. He wants this day to be, cough cough cough. Obito looked at Konan again. Konan's eyes flickered and he nodded slightly towards him. Now that the three senior brothers and sisters have decided, let's start. Obito slowly walked up to Nagato. Ask the system silently in your mind. System, what should I do? The system vibrated in his mind. Have host watched Shippuden? Obito lived in Bungbu. Quote. Opening parenthesis. Van, nonsense. The system said, oh. Then host is like 1 against 7, just poke his hand on the other person's forehead. Obito heard this and raised 2 fingers. He tapped lightly on the center of Nagato's eyebrows. A special suction force. Using his fingertips as the source, he began to slowly release. Nagato felt his surging eye power. It was like finding a small opening and pouring out. A few minutes later, phew, it's done. Obito took a deep breath and took back his hand. In my mind, the sound of selection completion also sounded. Successful selection. Get reward. Current chakra doubled. Yahiko looked at Nagato nervously. Is this done? Nagato, how do you feel now? Why don't you take a few steps and see? Konan also looked at Nagato with a worried look. I was afraid that something went wrong in the process of extracting the pupil power just now. Well, please wait a moment. Nagato carefully comprehended his own changes. His eyes couldn't help but light up. I seem to be able to drive that power freely. The original Rinnegan was a 100-pound hammer. Nagato only acts in extreme anger. Only then could he barely swing the heavy hammer, and he was exhausted every time. So now Rinnegan is like a 50-pound hammer. Naturally, Nagato can be easily picked up. He can even hold a hammer, spin, jump, and close his eyes. In one word, it's so cool. Really, that's great. Konan hugged Nagato, and Yahiko also hugged Konan. The three of them hugged each other tightly, because the pain of his companion's death was slightly relieved. And at the same time, Obito also closed his eyes and felt the changes in his body. He previously had a chakra of 3 points and more. Now after doubling, it has soared to nearly 8 cards. What is this concept? This is system. That's 0.08 chakra. Single quote backquote. Obito was almost pissed off by the system. He said fiercely in his heart. That's a good point, don't say it next time. Obito accompanied the three Yahiko. They buried their companions in the forest. Looking at the tombstones with familiar names engraved on them, Yahiko said silently in his mind, Mina, your sacrifice will not be in vain, Shao will become the first light to illuminate the dark night. On the way back, Yahiko laughed to himself and said, I used to hate this country that could only cry, but now I want to save it from the bottom of my heart. Because it was so much like the crybaby me that I couldn't ignore it. Konan gently put his hand on Yahiko's shoulder. Yahiko. Yahiko shook his head and said, I'm fine. Nagato, how are you? Nagato said softly, I'm fine now, Yahiko. Obito watched this scene silently. Talk about it. The relationship between Konan, Nagato and Yahiko is also quite complicated. The three of them grew up together. The deep companionship is also mixed with other emotions. Yahiko showed her affection for Konan in episode 566. Nagato also said that Konan seemed to be enamored with Yahiko. But in the next episode, Yahiko asked Konan to devote all his care to Nagato. It's very complicated. Obito estimates that the three of them can't figure out the relationship between them now. The four of them returned to the base of the Akatsuki organization. Looking at the empty room, Yahiko and others felt sad. A kind of sadness that things have changed and people have changed instantly broke through their defenses. However, all three of them are mentally strong people. He quickly regained his composure. Yahiko asked, looking at Obito. Junior brother, what do you think we should do next? Konan and Nagato heard this and looked at Obito. Through this period of time together, the three of them not only accepted Obito from the bottom of their hearts. She even vaguely regarded him as her backbone. Obito said without thinking. Let's wait for Brother Nagato to fully master the Rinnegan's abilities, and then launch a surprise attack on Rain Shinobi Village. Yahiko nodded, then frowned slightly and said, That's true, but this time can't be delayed too long. Otherwise, we will miss the opportunity when Rain Shinobi Village elects a new village chief and reintegrates the village's power. Obito pondered for a moment and said, I have some idea of Rinnegan's abilities, maybe half a month. I will practice with senior brother Nagato. Half a month should be enough. Yahiko was lost in thought. Half a month, okay. Then I'll ask you to accompany Nagato to practice for the next half month. I will take Konan out to search, willing to join our helpers. Obito thought to himself that he couldn't really use any help. The four of us can visit Rain Shinobi Village, which is more than enough. Okay senior brother. He said what he meant. Yahiko patted Obito's shoulder hard. Thank you, junior brother, for everything you have done for us. Obito looked at Yahiko's sincere eyes. I felt a little ashamed in my heart. Don't say that, senior brother Yahiko. We share the same ideals and should support each other. Konan suggested. Junior brother, why don't you join our Shao as well, and you can also be a non-staff member. Nagato said with a smile. I think Konan's idea is a good one, what do you think Yahiko? Yahiko put his arm around Obito's shoulders and said. Of course I have no objection, it just depends on what the junior brother wants. Obito looked at the expectant eyes of the three people, nodded heavily and said. From today on, I, Uchiha Obito, am a member of the Akatsuki organization. The border between the land of fire and the land of grass. In the magnificent underground palace, Madara sat on the stone chair with her eyes closed, listening to Black Zetsu's story about the trip. He tapped his thigh lightly with one hand. The expression on his face didn't change at all. A long time, he opened his eyes, and there was a glimmer of light in his eyes. You mean an unknown person saved Nagato and others from Rain Shinobi and Konoha? Black Zetsu replied respectfully. Yes, Madara-sama. I don't know where this guy came from. It seems that the current ninja world doesn't have a strong person worthy of his name. Madara snorted and said disdainfully. In my life, I, Madara, despise this kind of guy who hides his head and shows his tail. Black Zetsu glanced at Madara and said silently in his mind. Then you are really living like what you hate the most now. Madara frowned and said nothing. Nuoda's palace suddenly fell into silence. The planned plan failed. It's not convenient for me to walk in the ninja world now. Madara rubbed her eyebrows, feeling a slight headache. After a while, he put down his hand and looked deeply at Black Zetsu. Since this chess move is ruined, let's change it to another chess piece. Black Zetsu, go find me a child of Uchiha, a child who is strong enough to shoulder our great cause. Black Zetsu smiled and nodded. I understand, Madara. Now that the third ninja war has not subsided, it is not difficult to pick up a child. Black Zetsu's body plunged into the ground and escaped into the distance. The land of rain. The base of the Akatsuki organization. Obito looked at Nagato, who was practicing seriously not far away. The corners of his mouth were also slightly raised. Now a castrated version of the Rinnegan, Nagato is effortless to master. When using it, the burden on the body is also much lighter. And, although the power of the pupil technique used has decreased, the cooling time has also been shortened. So look at it from another perspective. It's really hard to say whether Nagato has been weakened or strengthened, it all depends on planning. Obito sank his consciousness into his mind, looked at the system and said. System, I have thought of a question these days, and now I want to ask you in person. Insert some system settings below, you can skip them if you don't like them. The system vibrated twice, and suddenly I had a bad feeling. However, he still pretended to be calm and said. Excuse me, host. Obito pushed the non-existent contact lens and said. If I can't get Nagato's pupil power, then aren't the previous 4 mission rewards just a blank check? But you listed it, which means you expected that I would definitely meet Nagato. Quote. Or maybe you have been guiding me in this direction through multiple choice questions. The system secretly muttered something bad and quietly cursed. I beeped. Why did this kid suddenly become smarter? Ding. Everything this system does is for the benefit of the host. Unlike other unscrupulous systems, this system only feels sorry for Hokage. Obito sneered, his eyes narrowed slightly, flashing with a dangerous light. I understand all these principles, but I want to know one thing now. Did you expect that Mount Myoboku would come to me, and I would eventually choose Mount Myoboku? Not good. The system feels like the data flow is almost overloaded. Seeing that the system did not dare to respond, Obito became more convinced of the introverted idea. So the previous task of learning how to crawl with a snake was just a ploy to mess with someone like me. The system pointed at the information panel and said. Host can't say that either. At least, your life with Lin will become more harmonious in the future. Obito, is this something that children my age need to consider? Well, what you said seems to make sense. Okay, then I forgive you. Immediately, he asked with some confusion. But, why? As a system, aren't you omnipotent? Why do some multiple choice questions have to be completed under specific conditions? The system shook and he spoke. Has host read system streamed novels in his previous life? Obito nodded and said very proudly. I read any book that has nothing to do with study, day and night. The system was a little speechless, wondering what Obito was so proud of. But just watch it. This makes it much easier for him to explain. Every world has its own independent will. In the novel, humans call it the way of heaven. The law of heaven is impermanent and only allows everything in this world to move according to its established trajectory. If you want to violate heaven-defying ways, you have to pay a certain price, which is equivalent to a favor fee. Obito nodded slightly and motioned for the system to continue. The system continued. Uchiha Obito, that's you now, you are an important plot character in Hokage. With my help, you can change the direction of the world to a certain extent. And every time you make a change, the law of heaven will fluctuate violently, and this system can take advantage of the opportunity to get some benefits. Obito was lost in thought. That is to say, you can't arrange rewards casually. At least you have to ensure a balance of payments. The system used the data stream to send Obito a Kamoji. Bingo. That's it. For example, after Host signed a contract with Mount Myoboku, he learned Mount Myoboku's magic. This is more reasonable in the eyes of heaven. Obito answered. So I extracted part of the Rinnegan's pupil power and opened my own Rinnegan in the future. Is it natural? The system said. Yes, Host. As long as Tiandao thinks that the changes that have taken place are reasonable, I can give Tiandao a little less in favors. There are too many systems these days, and the involution is severe. It is not easy to save some money in this system. Do you think? Obito said angrily. Okay, I already said I forgive you. It's really the first time I see a poor system in front of the Host. A conversation with the system today. It solved a lot of confusion in Obito's mind. No wonder the improvement of one's own strength is always limited by the system within a certain range. No wonder some things, no matter how hard he tries, will eventually happen. But the corners of Obito's mouth curled up slightly. As long as he gets stronger and stronger. So those things he wanted to do. It will gradually become reasonable. Nagato's voice of surprise interrupted Obito's thoughts. Yahiko, Konan, you're back. Obito turned around and saw Yahiko and Konan. Behind them, there were still 30 or 40 people standing. The smile on Obito's face grew wider and wider. It seems. Even if there is no protagonist halo, even if there is no system, there will always be people who are willing to stand up and change the world. Looking at the crowd getting closer and closer not far away, Obito raised his arm and put an orange mask on his face. He stayed in place silently, emphasizing his cold and aloof persona. Yahiko talked with Nagato for a while. Nagato and Konan were left behind and walked towards Obito. He asked with some confusion after seeing the mask on Obito's face. Obito, what are you? Obito waved his hand and motioned for Yahiko to keep his voice down. Brother Yahiko, I don't want to reveal my identity for the time being. From now on, in front of others, please call me a Fae. Yahiko whispered. Obito, Toby. Did he put his name upside down? Okay, but why, Fae? Yahiko asked. Obito's eyes under the mask flashed with a faint light. Because I plan to deal with that guy Shimura Danzo as Fae. If my true identity is known to Mr. Jiraiya, it will be very difficult for him to be caught in the middle. In order to solve Shimura Danzo, Yahiko immediately looked serious. I understand Fae, I will tell Konan and Nagato about it later. Obito nodded and immediately glanced at the people aside. Senior brother Yahiko, are these people you and senior sister have found reliable? Yahiko smiled and said, that's natural, many people here have longed for Shao before. It's just that for some reasons, we didn't officially join. Obito gave a thumbs-up gesture to Yahiko. Senior brother Yahiko is worthy of being the spiritual leader of Akatsuki. The four of them haven't seen each other for a long time. After joking with each other, they got together. With a serious face, they discussed the plan to raid Rain Shinobi Village. Konan asked looking at Nagato. Nagato, how well have you mastered the Rinnegan's power? Nagato smiled slightly and said calmly. Thanks to a Fae's guidance, I can basically move and retract freely now, and I no longer have to be troubled by it. Konan's eyes were filled with relief, and he was sincerely happy for his friend. Then, let's go through the action process. Yahiko spread out a map showing the defenses of Rain Shinobi Village. This is a strategic map I obtained from someone else. It may not be detailed and accurate. You can use it as a reference. Obito secretly clicked his tongue. Hey, good guy, can you do this? It seems that there are also like-minded comrades with senior brother Yahiko in Rain Shinobi Village. Yahiko reached out and clicked on the center of the map. A Fae will use his pupil technique to sneak all of us into Rain Shinobi Village and then appear here quietly. All of us launched a general attack here. Then Konan and I led a team, and Fae and Nagato each led a team to attack these three places. Said. Yahiko circled three important strategic facilities on the map again. After all four strongholds are destroyed, Rain Shinobi Village will no longer be a threat. After that, we will join forces again and slowly pick up the pieces. How about it? Does everyone understand? Konan and Nagato nodded repeatedly. Obito said with a smile. I understand, Boss Yahiko, I promise to complete the mission. Yahiko rolled his eyes and continued. When the time comes, if one of our 3 teams completes the task first, we will help the other teams capture the stronghold. We must fight quickly and capture these 4 strongholds. He emphasized again. The 4 people checked the battle plan repeatedly and confirmed that everything was correct. Then he gathered all the people together and divided them into 3 teams. Then, everyone was informed of the plan for the trip. Rain Shinobi Village. Obito appeared in a building like a ghost. Well, this should be right here, the temporary command center of Rain Shinobi Village. Next moment, one after another figures appeared quietly out of thin air. If this horrific scene is seen by anyone, it's 80% likely to be considered haunted. Someone might also ask, do you guys have to work overtime and have meetings at night? The group of people divided into 3 teams in an orderly manner and rushed in 3 directions. When the first scream sounded, the war had already begun. The confused voices of the Rain Shinobi echoed everywhere. How did the enemy sneak in? Why didn't the barrier team give a warning? It's the Akatsuki. That's the leader of the Akatsuki, Yahiko. Is that guy wearing the mask a ghost? Why can't he be attacked? This red-haired guy can actually rebound ninjutsu. Don't suck me. Yamiri. Less than 10 minutes. The temporary command center in Rain Shinobi Village was cleared by Yahiko and others. Yahiko said, looking at everyone. The enemy will be on guard for the next battle. Please be careful. I hope everyone can return safely. Then let's go. Obito stared when he heard this. He directly led his team into the Kamui space. Then travel across space and rush towards the goal. Nagato said with purple eyes when he saw this. I'm so envious of a phase eye skills. Conan glanced at Nagato and said nothing. But it was inevitable that I would curse for a while in my heart. Some people are just not satisfied. You, a guy with a Rinnegan, are envious of someone else's Sharingan's eye skills. Yahiko and Conan led a dozen people and rushed towards the west of Rain Shinobi Village. Nagato, on the other hand, led the team towards the east end of Rain Shinobi Village. As soon as Nagato showed up, countless ninjutsu flew from outside. Nagato simply put his hands together. Shinra Tensang. Boom. The incoming ninjutsu was instantly deflected. The Rain Shinobi who flew out together disappeared in the blink of an eye. Nagato continued moving forward with the team. After meeting the enemy, he clapped his hands again. Universal pull. The team members behind him saw the opportunity and raised the long knives in their hands. The Rain Shinobi that were attracted were stabbed through each other. Someone sighed. This is the first time I discovered that fighting is so simple. Someone answered. Yeah, I feel like if Brother Nagato claps his hands more, all the enemies will be dead. Nagato just kept going. There is no need to use other pupil techniques at all. Just use the 2-eye techniques of Shinra Tensai and universal pull over and over again. We can't say that we pushed the other side, we can only say that we completely crushed them. The elite of Rain Shinobi Village suffered a lot of losses after a fierce battle with the Roots. Now I run into this cheating guy Nagato again. There is no strong resistance at all. Not to mention not far away. There is another hanging ratio, which is outputting like crazy. Obito took a sharp breath and spat out a mouthful of thick phlegm. Lava-style extra-large portion of thick soup treasure. The scorching hot lava river surged out and instantly submerged the Rain Shinobi opposite. Throughout the process, not even a scream could be heard, only the sizzling sound of melting could be heard. Obito wiped his mouth refreshed. Is this what it feels like to have abundant chakra? It's so cool. Ha 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 ha. Obito couldn't help laughing wildly. From now on, let the world feel pain. Obito's figure slowly hung in the air. The magnetic sound echoed in the streets. Feel the pain, experience the pain, accept the pain, understand the pain. Those who do not know pain will never understand the true meaning of peace. Behind Obito, the team members began to whisper. Why do I feel that our captain, there seems to be something wrong there. Be more confident and get rid of the appearance. Obito turned his head angrily and glared at his team members. Then he looked at the Rain Shinobi coming in the distance again. Use that trick. Obito raised his hand and shouted with deep eyes. Fire-style pants stripping and dancing. A huge flaming snake appeared, spiraling towards the Rain Shinobi. The terrifying swirling flames swallowed up the enemy almost instantly. In the blink of an eye, the rain shinobi were burned to pieces. If there is a cheating teammate in the team, the efficiency will be higher. Team Obito and Team Nagato quickly completed the mission assigned by Yahiko. The two are currently leading the team on their way, preparing to support Yahiko and Conan's team. Have to say, although Yahiko and Conan are equally strong, but compared to the two people with colored lenses, they are still far behind. But that's what Hokage is. Early Hokage. If you work hard, even geniuses can surpass you. Mid to late Hokage. The previous words don't count. Even the acorn beast that almost kicked out of the finale. He is also a serious physical genius. The three teams joined together. The pressure on Yahiko and Conan was gone instantly. Universal pull. Okay, add some water. Even Obito didn't contribute. Watch Nagato perform alone quietly. Yahiko smacked his lips. Is this the power of Rinnegan? It's really enviable. Just two such simple and unremarkable skills. But it is enough to deal with 99.99% of the enemies in Hokage. God Wan Shen Wan, push all the way. After successfully capturing 4 strongholds, the ninjas of Rain Shinobi Village were completely defeated. Yahiko looked at the Rain Shinobi Village in Noda and felt a little passionate. From now on, the Shao organization will rise to a new level. The border between the land of fire and the land of grass. In the magnificent underground palace, the old god Madara sat on the stone chair and turned his attention to Black Zetsu in front of him. Black Zetsu, you did a great job this time. What's the child's name? Black Zetsu lowered his head respectfully and said, this child's name is Uchiha Setsuna. Madara raised her eyebrows slightly and whispered in confusion. Oh, Uchiha Setsuna. Why is this name so familiar? Black Zetsu responded with a smile. This child's grandfather, Uchiha Setsuna, was your most loyal supporter at the beginning, and he inherited your will perfectly. The little guy's father was proud of this, so he named the child after his father's name Setsuna. Madara nodded suddenly, a little happy thinking about it. So, this child is destined to be my Madara's heir. Black Zetsu raised his head and spoke cautiously. But Setsuna doesn't seem to think so. She has tried to escape several times. Madara frowned slightly and looked at Black Zetsu and asked. Didn't it mean that all of this child's relatives died in this war? What is she worried about? Black Zetsu replied. I heard from White Zetsu and the others that this child's childhood sweetheart is still fighting on the front lines, so. Madara tapped the stone chair gently with one hand and said compassionately. The longer we live, the clearer we see that reality is actually helplessness, pain and emptiness. It seems that this child hasn't seen clearly this false and cruel world. Then help her recognize the reality. Only in this way will she be willing to throw herself into my arms and create a real world with me. Black Zetsu smiled broadly. Against the dark face, the white teeth looked particularly serious. Madara-sama, what should we do? The land of rain. Rain Shinobi Village. The village that had just experienced a war now looked devastated. Obito felt a little emotional. If you want to be reborn, you must first be destroyed. If you want peace, you must first go to war. This world is really contradictory and interesting. Clean up Rain Shinobi Village, rebuild a new village, and recruit new members. Yahiko and the others are responsible for these things, so Obito doesn't need to worry about them. After all, they are professionals in this area. And under Nagato's plowing attack, those Rain Shinobi who survived by chance could no longer resist. Yahiko and the others had no intention of killing them all. That's nothing more than changing the boss. Not to mention, this boss is much kinder than the last boss. Is there any reason to continue to work hard? Except for a handful of Hanzo's die-hard fans, most ninjas had no other ideas. A week later, Obito arrived at the command center of Rain Shinobi Village. Or, now it's time to call it, Akatsuki, Hidden Village. Yahiko looked at Obito in front of him and said with some reluctance. Junior brother, do you really want to leave? Nagato also looked at Obito and said. Don't leave, little junior brother, stay and help us. Obito smiled helplessly. 2 senior brothers, there is still a mess over there in Konoha, waiting for me to clean it up. Yahiko and Nagato looked at each other, unable to say anything else. At this time, Conan's cold voice sounded. Kill Danzo. Obito smiled brightly. That's natural, he won't live long. The way to die by sealing a bridge is too cheap, Danzo. And we agreed to kill him in 10 years, so we can't break the promise, right? Seeing that Obito had decided to leave, Yahiko asked. Junior brother, where is Yuji? Obito thought for a while and said. That's what I think, senior brother Yahiko. Now the war in the Kingdom of Rain should not be ignited again. Let's start by stabilizing the environment on both sides. Yahiko nodded thoughtfully. I understand, little junior brother. The three of us will work hard to rebuild the Kingdom of Rain, let the dawn shine on every inch of the land, and let everyone bathe in the sunshine again. Obito nodded slightly and said, my side, another teacher, will probably be the next generation Hokage. After I get rid of Danzo's cancer, Konoha should be completely wiped out immediately. I will contact Yuji at that time, and we will work together to promote friendly relations between the two countries. After formulating each other's development plans, all four of them have a feeling that they have a promising future. BGM sounded in Obito's mind. Dare to ask where the road is at your feet, don't be sad, don't be afraid. The land of rain, dawn, is hidden outside the village. Yahiko took Obito's hand and patted his shoulder gently. Junior brother, the road back is full of mountains and rivers. Please take care of yourself. Obito said with a smile. Brother Yahiko, actually as soon as I opened Kamui, I arrived in Konoha in a flash. Yahiko let go of his hand speechlessly. I finally had a feeling of separation, and I asked you to get rid of it. Obito said, still smiling. Because it's not parting in the first place. I can come over anytime I'm free. Let's have a meal together and then I'll go back. Nagato said with an envious look. Junior brother's pupil technique is really convenient. The three of them all rolled their eyes after hearing Nagato's words. Big brother, if you keep going to Versailles like this, be careful of getting beaten. By the way, senior brother and sister. Obito said suddenly. You must not let down your guard, be careful of the person behind the scenes doing evil again. Yahiko nodded and said, don't worry, we will be careful. A warm smile appeared on Nagato's face. I hope they come here, so that I can avenge the Buddha and the others. Nagato. Konan sighed softly and squeezed Nagato's shoulder. Obito took out a piece of paper and handed it to Nagato. Brother Nagato, you haven't fully mastered Rinnegan's pupil technique yet. This is information about other eye skills. You can practice according to it when you have time. Nagato took the note and said with a smile. Thank you, junior brother, I understand. Konan stepped forward and gave Obito a hug. Junior brother, thank you for everything you have done for us these days. Obito looked at Yahiko's eager eyes. His eyes were as deep as the abyss with Nagato. Wisely, he immediately let go of Konan. No need to thank my senior sister, you forgot, I am also a member of Akatsuki, now. Seeing Obito let go of Konan, Yahiko and Nagato smiled warmly again. It was as cold as an ice cellar just now. It seems like it's just Obito's own illusion. Ahem, goodbye, brother and sister. Obito waved his hand and disappeared instantly. Yahiko watched Obito leave, then turned around and said. Let's go, it's time for us to go back. There's still a lot of work waiting for us to do. With a slight smile on his lips, Konan approached Yahiko and asked. Yahiko, were you jealous when I hugged my junior brother just now? Yahiko said with a smile. How can it be? Nagato smacked his lips and said. I testify that Yahiko is just jealous. He just wanted to kill his junior brother with his eyes. Yahiko punched Nagato in anger. You're talking nonsense. Konan, don't listen to Nagato, I really didn't. 3 young people were playing and walking into the hidden village of Shao. In the rare sunshine, their shadows are stretched so long. Fire Nation, Konoha. Kakashi looked at his hands. Flying Thunder God Kunai given by Mr. Minato. There is quite a sense of frustration at being unable to do anything. I still can't see through the magic on this. I wish I had that guy's eyes. Kakashi muttered quietly. Well, even just one will do. Just when he was secretly depressed, a voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Kakashi, what are you doing here alone? Obito. Kakashi was startled. He almost threw the kunai in his hand. A thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. What I whispered just now was probably not heard. Obito stared at Kakashi suspiciously, making his hair stand on end. What are you staring at me for? Kakashi asked. Obito curled his lips and said, You guy, you must have been thinking about something shameful just now. No wonder you have to carry someone behind your back. Kakashi felt guilty. I didn't, don't talk nonsense. Obito spread his hands and said, Okay, if you say no, then I won't. He looked around and saw no one around. Quietly took out a book from his arms and handed it to Kakashi. Here, I'll give you a nice book. Go back and find a place where no one is around to read it by yourself. Kakashi didn't reach out to take it, but asked with a wary look. What kind of book is this? Is it serious? This book is exactly the strange book that Jiraiya gave to Obito. Obito now gives it to Kakashi for 2 reasons. 1. He has experienced the elegance of this book more than once. 2nd, now that he has returned to his true form, there will be no place to hide this book. ... Afraid of being discovered by Lin. In line with the principle that the good news should not flow to outsiders. If you have good things, you have to share them with your brothers. Obito coughed twice and said, Ahem, of course it's not serious. Kakashi shook his head and said, Then I won't watch it, it will delay my cultivation. Obito said, Which of us brothers is following whom? I still don't understand your temperament. He said with mixed emotions. But this book, it's simply too inappropriate. Isn't that serious? Kakashi glanced quietly at the book in Obito's hand. He was a little moved. One hand slowly moved toward the book in Obito's hand. His face was ferocious, and he roared in his heart. No, Kakashi, you can't take this book. What about practicing hard as promised? What about studying diligently as promised? Did you say you would work hard to catch up with Obito? Have you forgotten it? Once you make a wrong decision, you will fall into a bottomless abyss. How can it be repaired? Put away your sinful little hands. I struggled internally for a long time. Kakashi finally made a difficult decision. He grabbed the book in Obito's hand. A childlike happy smile appeared on his face. But at this moment, Kakashi, Obito, I've been looking for you for a long time. Why are you two here? Oh, those who buy cakes. The sudden sound made the two of them tremble. The two of them withdrew their hands at the same time. The book fell to the ground with a clack sound. Before Obito could react, Lin had bent over. He picked up the book on the ground and opened the cover curiously. What is this? Simotor. Obito's heartbeat was racing. His head has never turned so fast in his entire life. This is Kakashi's book. He is planning to give this book to me. Kakashi looked at Obito in shock. What? This book, it. Kakashi was completely incoherent. Both mouths and heads were busy, and no one paid attention to the other. Lin flipped through 2 pages and immediately closed the book with a blushing face. Kakashi, you. Lin seemed hesitant to speak. We are not children anymore. We can understand that you have your own hobbies. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.